Hello and welcome to day 4 of the GodisaGeek Game of the Year 2024 deliberations. I am Adam Cook and I'm joined here by Chris Hyde.
Yo, yo, yo! 444.
Pendle.
Hello, I'm here too.
And Mick Fraser.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are here today, and I should warn you right at the start that it will be there will be spoilers here, lads. Here come spoilers. Pirates.
We're going to tell you the end of everything. Every game this year, we're telling you the ending.
No warning.
No, yeah, it's just going to randomly, a bell will ring behind me, and someone will just say an ending of any game. Not even one. Some that aren't even out, which is really bad. No, it's best story today and best moment in that order. So yeah, it's really hard to talk about a story with a. We won't deliberately spoil. We're not going to be like, oh well,
I will.
Story. Okay, Mick will, but the rest of us won't deliberately try and spoil it. Best moment. There is literally no way of discussing the best moments this year, especially if they're story based. Like it just doesn't work. As is tradition, 2023's winners. Then best story. Can anyone name any of the top 5?
Sea of fucking Stars, baby.
Yeah, that was number 2. That was number 2.
Yeah.
Alan Wake.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alan Wake seems to have swept the boards.
Yeah, Alan Wake did well last year. That was brilliant.
Yeah, the rest were Octopath Traveler 2, Baldur's Gate 3, and Final Fantasy 16.
This year's not been a big. It's not been a big story year this year because I was looking at the list going, I'm sure we've missed a load, and then I went through it and I couldn't think of any more that really. Like,
no, I've had that feeling a lot. Like we said, off the recording that
there
were
some good campaigns. Do you know what I mean? Like Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Space Marine 2, fantastic campaigns. Not so much on the story side.
Spoilers, they're not nominations, so I'll read the list.
No, yeah.
Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, The Thaumaturge, Metaphor Refantasio, Dragon's Dogma 2, Black Myth Wukong, The Plucky Squire, Life is Strange Double Exposure, Thank Goodness You're Here, Dragon Age The Veilguard, The Casting of Frank Stone, Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, UFO 50, and Still Wakes the Deep. So while we said there's not been a great year for story, there's 15 games there, I think?
Yeah, you got a few on this. I mean, I could name
17.
When are we starting? Do you want to start cut straight away? Because I can cut one immediately, I think.
Okay, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what we're here for.
Because I can't remember the storyline of Dragon's Dogma 2. I can't remember. It was an okay game. I think so. There was. I honestly, I'm sitting here now trying to think what the actual story was. I can remember a bit.
There was an imposter.
And then there's a giant following you at one point near the end, which seemed really cool, but was a bit overdrawn out. And I just don't remember the story of Dragon's Dogma 2 much.
There wasn't that much story in the first 30 minutes that I managed to play, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, there was somebody pretending to be.
Yeah, there was a fake
the prince,
the
or
Arisen.
whatever it was. Yeah.
But I can't remember if that even really mattered by the time I finished the game.
Well, it was all a political plot thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just don't think it was.
Wasn't it?
What's that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is dreadful. We're just describing things we think it might have been.
Yeah, I mean, I put this on. I put this on here because I think it's one of those games probably should have had a better story, and it's a long game that has a story, but the fact it's an indictment that we can't coherently go, here's the beginning, middle, and end of said story.
I don't remember.
I think. No, I mean, the story.
It doesn't even have cutscenes. I remember, or characters that I remember. So I think maybe that's probably an easy cut for story.
I will say I find it strange because I always think that Dragon's Dogma as a series, which we can say now because there's been I know that the first one wasn't, Dark Arisen wasn't a sequel, but it was expansion and they redid a lot, and now there is a sequel. But I do find they almost undercook the story, but they kind of do it in a way that you'd expect an online-only game to do, but then it doesn't have online multiplayer, so it always feels really weird to me in that way. It feels like the story's not as prevalent because it's it just felt to me like a side quest adventure game more than anything else. And I think that's why we can't articulate it, because to be honest, we spent most of our time not doing the story. Like it was very much a game I didn't finish, but also very much a game where it's almost like it's like a dog seeing a squirrel. For me, like I would just be walking along doing something, and it's like squirrel, and then I'd be off over there now exploring, and I don't mind that. Like, but it's not. Yeah, okay.
See, I did finish it, and I couldn't remember it.
Same.
Okay, I think also by the same, Black Myth Wukong is probably a good cut for story as well, because it kind of makes no fucking sense.
Well, I think so. I have only played a bit of this, and my observation is that obviously there's clearly a massive piece of material that it's based on. But
so that's what I was going to ask you. That you've just started it. So what is that? Because there's other games that have been based on this. It seems to be like a complete spot for me where I don't know anything about it. Wasn't like Odyssey to the West or something?
Yeah, Journey to the West.
Journey to the West is the general, I guess, backdrop to it, and I don't pretend to be an expert in that either.
And what is that? Is that a book or is that?
It was one of the classic Chinese.
It's like the biggest
novels.
book you could ever imagine in terms of like popularity. It's like Shakespeare meets Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the thing is, my observation of Black Myth Wukong is it's obviously set in that world, but I think it assumes
because I think it takes place. Yeah, it kind of takes place after I think the main events of Journey to the West, and then references like fucking all of it. But it does it. But it's got a very there is a through line, and if you know, which I don't, but if you know the novel or you know that history and the lore of that particular universe. I mean, we say that universe as if it's. I mean, this is hundreds of years old, but like if you know that stuff, then it's a lot more coherent. But if you don't,
so is this just like kind their take on that, or is it? The lore, really but do you know what I mean? Because I often see people get really excited about games based on this, but it just seems to be one of those things that, like Chris said, they assume you know it, whereas I start playing it and I'm like, I don't know, it feels good. But
obviously, Enslaved is different because Enslaved was just that was like a retelling of a small section of the overall story. So it was, whereas this isn't really a retelling so much as it's. Like I said, it takes characters and events and elements from what had already happened in that story, and then it tells more. And it's very like when you're in an individual chapter, the individual chapters kind of make sense. So you go into a chapter, you meet the support character for the chapter, you go through the chapter with them, you beat the boss at the end, that chapter closes, and you go on to the next chapter. There is a through line because later on you do meet a character that sticks with you for quite a while. He's quite amusing, a little like boar guy, and he sticks with you, and that gives it a more coherent through line. But I don't think he even comes into it until about chapter 3 or 4. And it is very. I mean, the story lost me. It didn't matter because I really liked the game and I knew what I was doing. Like where you're going and what you're trying to do, because you're trying to find the relics that will give Wukong back his power. That's what you're doing. These 6 relics that have been taken from you. So like the hero's quest stuff works really well as a plot. That's fine as a framework for the story. Makes perfect sense. It's great. But the background stuff, all these extra characters, I mean, there's like a whole dynasty of gods that's like Elden Ring, where they're all talking to each other like they've known each other for millennia, and you're just like, I'm just a guy who's here, because like you're not even really Wukong, you're like
you're just
an avatar for Wukong, and you've got to find his power to become Wukong. So yeah, it's a little bit. It was really good to play through, and like I said, the individual, and they do those things like I mentioned the other day, where they do between chapters they tell these little stories, these little vignettes, animated vignettes, and every one of those is fantastic. But there's like it's a standalone thing that then sort of informs some of what happens in the following chapter. But I think in terms of like if you were to say the story of Black Myth Wukong, I think you'd be picking it apart for hours and trying to.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely a load there, but I think it assumes a lot of knowledge. And to be honest, my observation of playing it, like I said, I'm only on chapter 2, right? So I've only seen one of those little animated bits, right?
Yeah.
But I do think it's like I'm still trying to go, okay, that clearly links to that bit, but it's harder work than it is because none of it's sort of like transcribed to you. Sometimes when I feel like an idiot, just tell me what's going on. Whether I think it just sort of if you know what you're looking at, it would be amazingly expressed. But because I'm not as clued up, I feel like.
And who developed this from software? Did you say?
What's that? It's like FromSoft. You feel a bit. I feel a bit like that.
That deserved better as a joke, if I'm honest with you. But
it does in the sense of how you felt going into something like a. It feels dirty to say it and lazy, but like you go into Dark Souls, and you're like, I kind of know the main beat, but I don't know why all this shit exists or anything. But and you maybe learn more as you replay it, and other people explain it to you in simple terms. And
it's like that, but it's dialed up.
But it's dialed up to 1,000,000. Yeah, exactly. So. It has to go. But
like someone says, rekindle the flame at the beginning of Dark Souls, and you haven't got a clue what they're talking about, and then 40 hours later, you rekindle a flame and go, that's what you want to do.
Exactly, yeah.
And all the stuff in between is just people sprouting lore at you. Yeah. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what else is a dirty word? Gusset.
Yeah, gash and gusset are horrid.
Anyway, so we cut in Black Myth.
Yes,
sounds like Black Myth.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting near the end of the week of Game of the Year, and it's like everyone's gone a bit.
No one had said gusset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You know what?
Now that's the bucket list. Gusset is taken care of. Next, flange.
Right, I'm here now. Right, everyone, calm down. All stop having fun. It's time to work at this. I'm going to cut some games. I'm going to do it quickly, and we're all going to be impressed by my ruthless efficiency. Okay.
It depends what you cut.
Yeah.
UFO 50.
The Plucky Squire is one of them. That's the first one. It sort of has a twee story that's kind of, it's nice enough, but it's
Mick will love it then.
Yeah, Mick, not enough hanging. No, he doesn't think hanging.
Not enough hanging for me.
Do you know when he said that? It's finally reminded me of. I remembered what it reminded me of. Do you remember in the League of Gentlemen where the two lads are selling pirate DVDs and they're buying them in a shop at some point? And they're going to rent DVDs. No, not enough hangings in that one. It's just the Plucky Squire's a cut, and it's a fine adventure, but it's not really. The story isn't the memorable part, is it?
No, it's not. It's got other things that are very good about it, and story's not it. The next one is Persona 3 Reload, because it's a story that has been told many, many years ago, and it has been reloaded for us, and it's very good. If it had been released as a new story this year, maybe it would stay. It would certainly stay on the list longer, but because it hasn't.
He's already pulled the trigger, Lyle. You can move on.
That's why The Last of Us isn't on here.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd win every year, Last of Us.
Shit, that could have actually been on there, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Moving on.
And the other one, like Mick said, is UFO 50, because UFO 50 has an interesting overall premise, and it creates a world that didn't really exist, and there's a lot of sort of little tiny bits of narrative hidden in, where you find out about different people who develop different games, and then on top of that, on a more spoilery level, there's even more hidden things that aren't necessarily present if you just play the game normally or play the games normally. But as a story, I don't think it wins best story. It's very interesting.
It's best story in the same way for me that maybe Spelunky would be best story, because of the weird Easter eggs, hidden stuff, and the way you adventure and find stuff that is not told to you. But I'm glad it's on here, because it's the most unique story.
Yeah,
because it's not a story, is it?
It's a fantasy world it builds.
It's not a story, but I
they've
get what
created
you're
this
saying.
narrative that doesn't exist, and it's clever. It's really clever.
It's fascinating, and they've added more depth to it than they ever needed to add to it.
Yeah.
But it's not a story. So that's it, and that's my 3 cuts. I did it. Good job, everyone.
I'll keep the rhythm going and cut one if you like.
Go for it.
I'd cut the casting of Frank Stone. I think for me, so and this is my personal opinion on it, right? So I like I like the Supermassive games probably more than anyone else here by a stretch. And I think this is one of their weaker stories. I think what it tries to set up in terms of it being in the Dead by Daylight universe and how that ends and becomes a thing with the character and everything else, I think is really clever. But I feel like as a story, and I'm trying not to spoil too much, but with it being split into 3...
But I do want to ask you that, why do you think that... Because I feel like those games, they iterate on them, mechanically they iterate slightly. Would you say that's fair? They might it's always the same principle with some peripheral mechanics. They live and die by their story. Like I feel like if you either like or dislike that kind of game, like a modern point and click, innit? But what I feel like is when you finish it, if you sit there and you go, I really like that, then what I think you're saying is I really like the story, because if it was, and I really did enjoy the story, and not just because of the ending.
The reason what I was about to say, like the reason why I don't think it quite lands from a story perspective for me is, again, try not to spoil where I don't have to, but they kind of split the story into 3 separate sections, and I don't think any really gets enough airtime to breathe, and they flip-flop between 3 of each section. And I'm not saying the story therefore needs to be 3 times longer than a normal Supermassive game, but they're all, or each of those sections feels very short and very rushed, so nothing really gets going before you move to a different part of the story.
So without spoiler, did you find you... Well, we can spoil, I'm not going to, but did you find that... So there are distinct sets of characters you play as.
Yeah.
Did you find that one of them you kind of didn't really care all that much about? Because like the modern day characters, I found myself not really all that fussed by towards the end.
No, and I think the storytelling for them in the middle is very weak, because they're just progressing to the more action parts of the other times, because they're just sort of wandering around a house going, oh, I wonder how I unlock this door. Yeah, all right, let's. Whereas other ones is like, oh my God, shit's getting real. Oh, we're back to the house where nothing's happening. Okay. And then obviously stuff at the house happens later at the very end, but it takes time to get going. So I feel like that creates a pacing... issue's too harsh a word, but I do think
some chapters are a lot longer than others as well.
I think that you get to a lot of times with these Supermassive games, sometimes they take, some of them are too slow to get going, but when they get when they get going, you're like on edge for the next part.
Hit a peak.
Whereas this
on it.
does that, and I feel like that means that the story is suffers for it. But I have to say, I'm not got an affinity for that Dead by Daylight thing like you have, say. I really liked.
I thought that was amazing. That ending,
the theming and the ending piece. I was like, that's really cute and clever. I like that.
Really cleverly done.
As a premise, but as a story, for me, that was one of the weaker ones. I would cut it compared to some of these.
I will say, before we do cut, I will say I wonder if people, because I know the Dead by Daylight thing, I've not played it. I know enough about it through covering games to know what the ending was. I do wonder if you were just a fan of Supermassive and you played that at the ending, you just be like, what? Is this early access? Is the ending coming later? Because it is so. If you don't know what that's alluding to, it's a weird ending. It's quite a brave ending to do that.
It's a very brave ending. I mean, I don't know much, but I know of the theming of the ending and what it represents. I'm not stupid, but like I say, some people might not. Like, I
mean, if you don't, you don't. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, but I think
it does lose something if you don't.
You're like,
Yeah.
But no, I'll cut. You're right. I can't disagree with anything you've said. I'll cut it. We've still got 11 anyway, so I mean, it's not like...
Yeah, I don't think it was cracking the top 5, whether it goes now or
you're
later,
probably right on that respect. I did really enjoy it, and I think it's one of their better ones, but that's just me.
I mean, I didn't, but I think it's a very interesting direction of where they're taking it as, like, because...
Well, they're almost studio for hire at this point now, aren't they? Like, we want that puts them on the map as not someone who can just make their own games, as someone who can say, hey, do you know what? Capcom, for example, I want a Resident Evil game like that. There's you guys. I mean,
it's almost like how Telltale were.
Yeah,
with like,
yeah. You could see it.
Yeah.
You could see it definitely. You could see licensees going, oh, we want a game like that. We'll get in touch with Supermassive.
Yeah,
but it's gone. So,
Thank goodness you're here, a story game.
It's kind of only.
I haven't played it,
it's a comedy
so I'm just
story.
The actual narrative of the game is you go to a town to help it, and you end up helping lots of other people instead, and that's sort of it. So not really. You do other things along the way, like potentially, wank off a fishmonger and stuff like that. But
we've all done that. I mean,
we've all done that.
There's a euphemism.
Normal.
Oh, sorry, I've just got to go and wank off the fishmonger.
Yeah.
It's not always a euphemism.
It's not. Sometimes it's just life.
Sometimes you do what you got to do.
Yeah,
Chris, and that's just the way
for
it is.
For a sea bass.
I wouldn't do it for a sea bass.
I like
this. Has gone wrong.
Okay.
So
it can go now anyway.
Bit of mahi mahi.
Nice bit of salmon.
It's a cut, isn't it?
It is a cut. Yeah.
The fish.
Yeah, the fish is a cut.
Depends how you're cooking it.
Yeah,
true. Down to 10.
Out of 10, look at us go. What's the story of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink like? Because I didn't play that much of it.
It's a JRPG where you do JRPG stuff until the JRPG stuff finishes.
And then you do Monster
Hunter stuff. There's a squeaky character. There's a veteran warrior who's 22. There's the usual.
Keep it.
Couple of gun lads.
Yeah. A guy who's just ridiculously bigger than everybody else for no reason, and no one ever references it.
Yeah, a guy whose biceps 3 times the size of someone's head.
Yeah.
I can't remember the story at all.
No, I mean, listen, it's one of those.
Is this what this pod's going to be as we get older? Just us going, none of us can remember.
Go get captured by mysterious big bad group, and then Troop goes to rescue her. Come on, what's that?
Tales of Arise.
I mean, I think that's selling Tales of Arise a bit short, but yes, I know. I mean,
just hang on. Just said it's a JRPG that does JRPG things till it stops. But I'm being.
I know. I don't disagree. It doesn't make top 5.
No.
To be honest, it doesn't do enough.
No, it doesn't. It's a really good game. It feels like the game this year that's going to get picked up and mentioned in a lot of categories and never quite take it home. Because it's a great game that came out very early this year that most people slept on. That is, okay. I want to cut Metaphor Refantasio.
Boom! Let's do this.
Sorry, I played it.
Well, I haven't cut it yet. I thought I might as well come in hot. I just don't think I played that game and was like, oh, this is a great story. I say it had a couple of moments where they got me with the twists. But the overall story, I'll be honest with you, and I'm oh God, I'm going to anger people by saying this probably, but
no, say it and I'll back you up.
I find with Atlas games, a lot of the time, not always, because like Persona 3 Reload, I didn't feel this, but with a lot of them, I feel very fatigued by the end of it, and I'm like, could you just end this story so I can move on with my life, because I'm enjoying it, but you bluff and then you double bluff and then you triple bluff. It's like, could you just pick a path and end? And I'm not going to spoil anything because I don't need to for what I'm saying, but with Metaphor, it does do that a bit where every time I thought I'm near the end, it Lord of the Rings is it. Like, it's got 3 endings, you know what I mean? It just keeps... it may just be me being a miserable old bastard, but I didn't feel the story was like... I
feel like...
I like the characters and I like the gameplay. The story was like...
I think... Yeah.
I'll just say, and then you can just agree or disagree, Lar. But I think... No, for me, I do think the nature of that game with the calendar over time destroys the pacing of the story, because you get to a point where you're like, I mean, even some of the story beats are like, I shall be back in 22 days. Exactly. And it literally say that sometimes. I'm like,
and then in the top corner, it says, wait, 22 days
till so-and-so return.
Yeah. And there's even a point, and this is it's just a funny point, but there's one of the early main dungeons with the big bad, the Scottish guy with the purple hair.
And we've mentioned him.
And they literally, bestly character. And it's like, they're like, oh no, we can't open this door. And like, that could keep us backtracked for the next 7 days. But then depending on whether your party gets to that door in the next 1 day or 7 days, is exactly the same amount of time that it takes them to open said door that could have taken 1 or 7 days to open. I'm like, okay, but that's more of a comedy thing. But I do think that calendar piece does affect the pacing of the story. I also think some of the twists. I mean, one of them I saw come in about 20 hours ahead, and they didn't even give it like a crescendo or payoff afterwards.
That is kind of an Atlas thing to do. I find they do that a lot with twists where you're like, I got it 20 hours ago. Would you please just reveal it so we can move on? And
it's not. I mean, it's not like
is Luke my father? No, he can't.
Yeah,
Luke can't.
It's not like Xenoblade where they're wearing that mask. I can clearly see who it is. But it's like it wasn't that obvious.
It's not far off that.
No, but it's also like, okay, but even if I'm right, do something with that twist. But he always like there's a couple where they just don't do anything with them, and I don't want to spoil them. But like if I said, I think is saint the right word? If I said that twist to you, that I was like, okay, that's fine. You've revealed that. And then it just sort of doesn't really, it's inconsequential. I'm like, that's one you've been building up for 20 hours. And like, what are you doing? Like,
I will say, I think Metaphor Fantasia has good writing in plot spaces, but I find, and I'm kind of like this always with Atlas games, is that I'm there and I'm enjoying the characters, not the overarching story. Like, I like the characters and I like the story within the characters. They're not interstitials because they are like missions that you progress through the whole game. But I like those stories. And I find those more enjoyable than the overall story of the overarching narrative, I suppose, the Kings.
Yeah, and you could definitely say the same about Persona as well for most of their games. Like with the ending thing, it's like the ending of most Persona games is like a little bit longer, where you're like, oh, there's some sort of twist that means I have to do another 8 hours of dungeon.
Exactly that.
And that sort of thing, like that does happen. I mean, I kind of like the concept of the story a lot as well. I like the whole like it sort of goes from there is this monarchy, and then overnight magic means there is suddenly democracy.
But it also kind of doesn't say anything with it. It kind of it dips its toe into what it's trying to say or what the message could be, and then it just kind of. Just goes revert, because this is what wound me up. I love that game, by the way. I should say, and I finished it, and it, I wouldn't have finished the game that long if I didn't enjoy it. But it was a lot of the marketing around it was like the totally new thing from Atlas, and it's like it really isn't, and that's fine because Persona, funnily enough, are fucking great games, and everyone loves them. But like, it's not. It's Persona. It is a Persona game with a different name, and with. And I do think they may have got to the point where they're not listening to people who do have genuine criticisms anymore, and they just will go, no, we make these games. And I think that they could be even better. And I think, it just doesn't. The story just doesn't land for me.
Yeah,
overall.
and I will just say I do agree. I think the setting with the world that they created could have allowed them to do some things really clever. They set up those of these kind of really mini scenarios about like persecution and stuff like that, and like you say, monarchy and versus kind of diplomacy and stuff, and they never really kind of go hard on any of them, and they really could have done and like exist in other RPGs. So they definitely did a really good job creating a kind of believable lived-in world. But I felt like then the main story that threaded through, I didn't really like the bad guy so I wanted to kill him and all this sort of stuff. Like they succeed in creating things like that means you want to go through the game. It's not like I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is an absolute, crock of shit or anything. It's it's just that, from a top story, I just feel like they could have done more.
I think a lot of what we've sort of talked about with Metaphor, and when it's got cut from basically every list, is like that. We don't just have quite the right categories where it would win. Like if there was a best RPG combat, I'd be like,
I feel like
for it. Or,
I feel like the combat is the best part of Metaphor Fantasia, and that battle music is decent as well. Let's not pretend it isn't. But for me, the combat is the best thing. I think a lot of the other. For me, and I know I'm probably slightly more down on it than you and Adam, Lyle, I think Metaphor Fantasia is just very good but not great in a lot of areas for me, and I think overall that makes it a really good game. But then when you say best of, that's where I think it struggles for me, because I don't think I could name other games with better stories or better, for me, better soundtracks, better visuals, whatever, so I think that's the thing for me. Unfortunately, in a top 5 scenario,
exactly,
it might get cut, but actually the sum of its parts all together make a really enjoyable game for me, so. And I can see why people, because I know a lot of people, it's like their game of the year, and I can see that as well if you like that kind of thing. But I would cut it.
Do it.
I think I suggested it, and if Lyle said do it. Shall we give it just a quick refresher of the list?
We went from 17 to 8. I feel like we should.
Yeah, we've done all right, haven't we?
We've got Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, The Final Fantasy Rebirth, The Thaumaturge, Life is Strange, Double Exposure, Dragon Age, The Veilguard, Odin Chronicles, 100 Heroes, and Still Wakes the Deep to cut 3 from.
So there's 2 I haven't played on that list.
Sure.
That I'm going to need some help on. Which is
yeah.
Life is Strange and Still Wakes the Deep.
Yeah, same. They're the 2 I haven't played. Yeah.
So I'm going to need help there to know where they might rank, if at all.
Lyle, do you want to go or shall I?
I'll go, shall I? So
I'm trying to think of a defense and I'm struggling, so you better.
Yeah. So for Still Wakes the Deep, that's where I'm going, because
sorry, we should say.
I've played all of. I think I kind of touched on the story quite a lot in Best New Character, where I was talking about sort of the narrative of the main character, Kaz, who has sort of like run away to a rig to try and escape, some issues he's having at home, some legal issues, and it just tells a very interesting story of like, it goes bad fast, and there's a lot of scary monsters, and it tells an interesting story of this guy's growth of like, he's running away because he loves his family and he wants to still be able to have them, and then eventually he's sort of in this awful situation and kind of trying to think of what's the best thing to do in this situation without spoiling. 3 people who haven't played.
No,
it's a tough one.
This is the
I
question.
saw a trailer for it and it looks great. Like, I've got to be honest, I do really want to play it.
You should. Yeah, great. It's amazing.
Yeah, the question. I know it's hard. You don't have to spoil, obviously, because I've not played it. But like, the question I have, obviously, is like, obviously,
my
horror,
daughter
right?
played
Horror.
it. She really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's by the Chinese room, so it's like everybody's gone to the rapture.
Walking sim horror. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because isn't it like their first return to horror? Like, so it's like, is it Amnesia?
A Machine for Pigs.
Machine for Pigs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Start to say the Machine for Pigs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard because you're the only one who's played it. Well, Chris.
Yeah, I know.
What I'm trying to assess without you spoiling it all, Lyle, is if it's just as a story, if it's really good, or if it's as an experience. And I don't know, because it's difficult with horror, isn't it? Because it's a very sort of emotional experience because of the nature of you being, I guess, tense or shocking or whatever. So I'm just that's the bit I'm trying to get clear in my head. Like, is it?
Yeah, honestly,
a really
it is a tough one. It's a tough one for me to even pass myself, because a lot of it is like how I said, a lot of it I talked about in Best New Character. Quite a lot of it is tied to character more than overall story, because maybe the overall story can be summarized quite quickly in, a few words, or like in a few sentences of like, guy is at oil rig, shit goes bad, lots of people die. You know what I mean?
He's on Chris White's top 5. He's not with us, but I've got his lists for the days he's not with us.
But I bet Life
he's
is
alive,
Strange
by the way.
too.
Sorry. Just to be clear, when I say he's not with us, I just mean on the podcast. Still Wakes the Deep is on his top 5 stories.
He wrote his top 5 from his deathbed. Make sure.
he had to get that through. So I don't know.
Make
if that
sure Life
anything.
is Strange. You bastards.
No, it's not actually. Life is Strange is not.
I wouldn't cut Still Wakes the Deep yet. Lyle's been really into this game, and I think we've cut
I think Life is Strange has to go because Chris White isn't championing it.
If Chris White's not championing it, and you were going to try and talk about it through him, then
I've played it. I finished Life is Strange Double Exposure, and I really enjoyed it. I tend to do this with Life is Strange. For some reason, I just don't get excited about it, and then I eventually get around to playing it, and I'm like, I really like that. But I can't sit here and say that I think the story's incredible. I just really like being in the world and how it looks and that, and like I kind of like it. And it was nice to be playing that character again, and like she's grown up. And the problem with it is without spoiling, they totally end this game by basically going they literally say Life is Strange will return. Like, this is the
MCU.
100% like the MCU. You're more right than you could ever know, and that's as close to spoiling as I'll get.
It's the MCU for queer teens.
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. in a post-credit scene, that kind of thing.
You're
amazing.
Basically, yes. What you're saying is kind of yes. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but yes.
Okay.
If you think about the other Life is Strange,
I've got you. I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Life is Strange with the young lad, like he had a different power to Chloe and to So like basically Life is Strange will return, and I get why that moment's there. but it feels a little bit like it undercuts it, as if to say, well, this was just our game. We're, our comeback album, so now we're back, and now we're going to do the real shit. It's like, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I need it to be bigger than that. I feel like it works better as this kind of like small town weird shit. But I do really enjoy those games, and I like playing them, and I really like this one. But the overall story's not all that exciting. It's kind of a bit supernaturally, a bit weird, powers, alternate universes and stuff, and it's a bit... Yeah, I'll cut it. Okay. What I should mention at this point is there is a game on Chris White's list that is not on the overall list.
Okay.
And that's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Because Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And I think that's interesting because he's got it in number 3.
And I can believe that from the 4 hours I've played.
But I don't think we can add games at this point. I don't think we can.
And we can't if none of us have played enough of it to really be...
I've played a good portion of it to be like, I really like it. Excuse me.
It's a great game, and I'm hoping...
I've just started it, but I haven't played enough to talk to the story of it.
No, same.
Right, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this.
Wish there was a best opening.
Yeah, well, there is best moment in it. But I'm going to say this because someone has to say it. Is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth a cut?
I think maybe for story specifically,
that's what we're talking about,
for the same reason as I think we had this conversation with, and because this is not well, I don't know, because they do new stuff, don't they, with Rebirth? Like they do new.
It goes new
places.
No, and that's why I'm like, I feel weird because it is new for you. It is. There's no.
And it's not all new. Some of it's new for us. Like let's not pretend.
Some of it is like there's a lot of new. There's new elements in it, but maybe not story elements that stand out.
I just want to know if we are genuinely considering it. Because if we are, fine.
From this list, I would probably be comfortable cutting that game because.
Well, listen, for me on that list, it's absolutely one of the best stories because I love that
this
game.
Is what I want to be This is what I want clarified. Yeah. If we're saying the reason we're cutting it is because 4 if Chris White was on, right, have seen that story before, then like Persona Reload, we've got to cut it, then I'm fine. If it's...
That's not why I would necessarily cut it, not because I've seen, because it does do a lot of new stuff, and they do add, there's a lot added to this version.
But of the story?
If we're judging the actual story of Rebirth against some of the stories on this list, I'm not want to cut it yet.
It's really tough, I agree with both sides of this.
Yeah, because there's only 2 big main sections of this story that I remember. I'll tell you what. I'll give you an example of why actually this probably could stay on best story. The bit in so have you played all of it?
We've said spoilers, we've all finished it here. We've said spoilers. You've been warned.
The bit in this where Barrett has the altercation with the guy from his past, whose name now eludes me. I can't remember.
Yeah, but that is okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so it was in the original. I'm not saying it wasn't in the original story. It's quite impactful now because of the way this story is told. For the same reason that I didn't like the 13 stuff so much in this version.
You've kind of used the one bit of the story I didn't like that was new. that's the like, because I felt it was quite clumsily handled. The way the fight happens, and then you just sort of
I didn't like the fight. I thought the fight was awkward because they're sort of standing there shooting each other with bullets from 3 feet away or whatever. But I did like that story.
And then he dies.
Yeah, I did exactly, which is weird because it's what, you're dying from that, you pussy, walk it off like we have done for the. But here's a phoenix down. Why'd you have to die? Anyway, that's Final Fantasy. But
let's not get into that. Jesus.
No.
But I do think I did like that bit. I thought that had. I didn't think the acting was too bad, considering the Barrett actor is really like OTT most of the time. So I'm not saying it stays on because of that moment, but I'm just saying as an example of the way they were able to expand on the original.
But we are at this point almost saying the moments make up the best story, or is the
well,
best story.
yeah, maybe.
And,
So, but I'm not fighting for it. I'm just
story. It's a
yeah.
third.
I mean,
I'm just
offering a counter argument. I'm not.
And I'm genuinely
necessarily
playing devil's advocate, because if you want to tell me Final Fantasy can be on every top 5, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, cool. But I'm playing devil's advocate because I know people will be going, well, hang on, it's not a new story at all, and you've just.
I mean, I'm
pulled
comfortable cutting it. I won't. I'm not fighting for it. I'm not saying it has to stay.
Should we park it and then see how far we get? And
yeah, because Chris seems hesitant to put it. So
yeah.
Maybe needs an asterisk for now. Like, we've got that in our. We know that knowledge is there. It's locked away. We don't want to cut it because we love it so much. But let's talk about the other games and see if it feels right. If that makes sense. Like, let's talk about.
I want to ask about a game because. Yeah. Okay, so there are a few games where I haven't played them to the end for whatever reason or the other. I know people are really passionate about the story of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I know people are really, really passionate about the Banisher's story. I don't necessarily know how passionate about the Thaumaturge story people are. Is that to that same level? Is it not? What do we think? I'm intrigued.
It'd certainly be in my top 5.
Okay.
It's an interesting one because Chris Hyde here, he and I have had the same experience but of 2 different games. His experience of the Thaumaturge's ending was my experience of the Banisher's ending, and we both discovered like the alternative endings since. But I will say that the bad ending of Banishers didn't make me go, oh, fuck this game forever. And I don't think that the same happened with you for the Thaumaturge, did it?
No.
I don't think it was like, oh well, no, I hate this game now.
No.
So listen, if I'm cutting one off this list, and I think there's one game there that looks super easy to cut, it's Eiyuden Chronicle, because I finished that game and I'm sat here going, what the fuck happens at the end of that game? And I just it becomes more about how cool the game is and the mechanics are and everything about it. And I cannot for the life of me.
Well, the whole background of that game is collect all these characters, throw all these characters together. So the story beats become that. They're just, let's do this, now let's do this, now let's do this. And in between,
to any game it ever gets made, if you are giving over 100 characters, all with unique voices, backstories, and you are going to struggle to then weave them into a proper story for all of them. Like, there will be DLC. I think the DLC is still due, isn't it? That focuses on the... Because in the main art, there's the guy in blue, the girl in green, and Noah.
The guy in red.
Noah I remember because he's like you started.
Yeah.
But I want
so there'll be a yellow character because.
Well, no, I want to say the DLC focuses on not Noah, blue or green, because you do play as there.
You mean Noah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's Noah. You're right.
I don't. Whatever. But like, I can't remember. All I can.
I will say I don't think we've talked about it, and I'm not sure where it lands in any later days. But I do love the premise and the execution of this game. Like, I really do. Like when I first played this, and you were telling me about 100 heroes, I was like, it's going to get boring after 10 because I'm not going to want to change any of them, and like, they're all going to feel like the same character once I've got past 10. It's going to be dog shit. And yet, through a combination of kind of variety, voice acting, really good character leveling within the combat, and the combat design itself, it really works all the way through. There probably does reach a saturation point around sort of like 60, where you go, if you just suddenly acquire another 7, you're like, okay, I probably won't get to all 7 of them up to the same level as all of these others.
You guys are going to have to sleep in the barn.
Yeah, I haven't upgraded my city quick enough here, lads. Right? You're going to have to bunk in. But I think as an idea, it's executed really well. It looks lovely, sounds lovely. The combat's great. The voice acting is fucking superb. Some of those characters, I forget the name of the lass you get early on that's really fucking aggressive. Healer woman, fucking superb. She's
she should have been in best new character. She was so good.
But then again, I even think that there are so many well done characters. You could almost have a list of them.
Yeah, it's the hunter with the North Country accent.
The North Country, the crossbow guy.
Nowhere.
It's from Yorkshire.
Built me a ball.
I
do think it's not making this top.
I think so too.
So.
No, not for story, maybe.
And then we're nearly at 5, lads.
One to go. So, So okay,
I mean,
it's either Rebirth or Still Wakes the Deep.
No, I don't think it is. I want to ask. I want to ask Lyle a question, and I want to ask Chris a separate question. Right? No explanation. Just give me an answer. This is a yes or no. Well, it's not yes or no. This is a binary answer. I want. Lyle, if you had to cut one of them, would you cut Final Fantasy or would you cut Still Wakes the Deep?
I think I'd cut Final Fantasy.
Okay, wasn't expecting that. Chris, same concept here, but would you cut Dragon Age or Final Fantasy? And I know that is brutal, and I know.
Fucking hell.
Well, I mean, all right. Well, in that case, would you, if let's say Lyle and Mick think Dragon Age is up there, would the Thaumaturge make it? Because I can't see a world in which you, I, or Mick would let Like a Dragon or Banishers go from this list. That's 2 locks, isn't it?
So for me, okay. So if I'm being transparent,
no, you've got to answer it. No, you're not getting out of it. I want the answer.
No.
I'm to cut Final Fantasy.
Right, do I think? No, I'm not fucking answering that question.
You have to. That's binary. You have to. I want to know.
No, I don't.
It's not legally binding.
I'll answer the different question. The second question you asked.
Fucking
I think, in comparison to the others on this list that I have played, and I haven't played Still Wakes the Deep, I'd put the Thaumaturge. I'd cut the Thaumaturge. If I'm cutting a game I've played, and I have to,
I was not expecting that. So at this point, should I give Chris White's top 5 as well? So we can sort of
let's see what he's got.
Go on.
In 5th is Still Wakes the Deep. 4th is Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, which I don't think he's finished at the point of making that list, to be fair to him. Indiana Jones is 3rd. He has finished that. And Dragon Age is 2nd with Like a Dragon at number 1. I know he's finished those 2, so...
I think that it feels like the Thaumaturge is the one that goes. Because... like Dragon Age is even quite high on Chris's list. I'm sure Dragon Age is on your list, Adam. I know it's on Chris's. It would be on my 5 for story.
Yeah, and it would be on mine as well.
I don't even know why Dragon Age is part of this conversation for being 6th, to be honest.
I didn't think Lyle and Mick would be as hot on it as you, because I know it's like a special game. It's your Final Fantasy, isn't it? For me. Yeah. So like, well, it does sound like the Thaumaturge is the cut then.
I feel like for me, I feel like it's a conversation between the Thaumaturge and Still Wakes the Deep, personally. Unless you're cutting Final Fantasy on a technicality, which is still floating around with that asterisk.
Yeah.
No, like if we cut it because it's of a technicality, I'm fine for Final Fantasy Rebirth to go. I think there's a much bigger conversation to be had around the story. If not, like
I don't really want to cut Final Fantasy. Like I'm floating around, but I don't. No,
I can't.
And I think it has some. I think it does interesting things with the story that people weren't really ready for. It has some, like, there are moments we're going to be talking about.
Well, definitely not. People weren't ready for.
I mean,
for multiple reasons.
Chris, look, you're the only one here who had not seen or played this story part before.
Mm-hmm.
How desperate are you for part 3 after playing it? Because like I am, for obvious reasons.
Gagging.
Yeah, okay. It's got to stay. It's our list. We make the rules. It's our list. It's got to stay.
Yeah.
So it has to be the Thaumaturge or Still Wakes the Deep. And for what it's worth, Still Wakes the Deep is 5 on Chris's list.
So to honour Chris, we'll leave it at 5, and then we're sorted, right?
It certainly sounds like the argument is it's the Thaumaturge or
it would be my 5. My 5 are already there. My 5 are there with Still Wakes the Deep at 6. So like for me, it would be my 5.
I mean, yeah, and it's
Thaumaturge,
not really fair to be like, well, which will you vote for? 5 I played or this one, you know, like. Yeah,
no,
like,
I'm saying my Thaumaturge is the same as Chris's Still Wakes the Deep. Is what I'm saying.
Fair.
So, like, I feel like they can cancel each other out. I think then it's about your passion for Still Wakes the Deep versus Adam and Mick's for Thaumaturge, and then that's our answer.
And I really do fucking love the story of Still Wakes the Deep. It manages to tell a very personal story in a horror setting that you don't really get very often, you know?
I think the issue we've got here is that Still Wakes the Deep is Chris's number 5, Chris White's number 5. And on this list, the Thaumaturge would probably be my number 5. So it sort of depends how high Chris, you and Lyle have the respective games.
Were you literally listening for what I said a minute ago?
I was really thinking desperately.
I said it's my number 5 and Chris's number 5,
I didn't
so
hear
we
you
cancel
say it was
each
my
other
number
out.
5. I was really trying to think about.
Lara's going to go, well, it's my number 4, and therefore.
And there we go. For me, realistically, on this list, it's like 2 or 3.
We'd have the Thaumaturge in our top 5, but against some of these others, it would probably be 5, and therefore. Lyle has more passion for Still Wakes Deep, and so if Thaumaturge slips to 6, I think that's what we're saying. Because it's 5, and I don't even think Mick would have it in his top 5, would you, Mick?
Of this list, I'd have to, because I haven't played Still Wakes the Deep and I haven't played enough Like a Dragon, so it would be there. But I wasn't. I really like the writing and the characters in the Thaumaturge.
Yeah.
But the actual story wasn't necessarily what drove me, which is a separate thing. The character, which we discussed, Victor, in Best Character, fantastic, really well written, like so many layers, like really, really good protagonist. And like his overall story, his overall drive that pushes you through the narrative is great. I think the world is interesting. Like it's got an interesting setting. You don't often see that kind of mystical sort of world in that era. Like that's quite new and different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not one of my probably favourite stories of the year. I don't think it would have been on my list originally if I'd made a best story.
I have to say, there are parts of the Thaumaturge's story that I don't know if it's because of the way it handles the choices, but there are parts of it that I just feel. They feel like they're part of the whole kind of jankiness of it in a bad way, though. Like some of the stuff with Rasputin, it just sort of doesn't. Unless I blinked and missed it, like just then a minute ago, it just doesn't really explain itself. Like there's a moment we're going to talk about where there's an explosion, and everyone is talking about how someone has died, and you carry on playing the story, and then they're just there. They're just back, and I don't know if that was like some jank or some problem with the choices. I would guesstimate that the Still Wakes the Deep doesn't do that because it's a linear narrative, and by that,
it definitely doesn't.
I tell you what, like there is always, whenever there are games with decisions,
there's always
they always struggle more to tell a coherent story. They just do by their nature. It's very hard, which is interesting because we're going to get onto a decision-made game at some point. But it's very hard, I think, to tell the story you want to tell if you're giving control to the player of some of the key beats. And Thaumaturge does do that, and I think therefore you could argue it loses some. For me, I think there's a piece here where fundamentally there's passion, and I mean passion for one person for one of these games, and the rest of us are going, it's very good, but compared to some of the others. So I feel like it made 6 well done for the Thaumaturge, and it's really good, and more people should play it. Lyle, play the bloody game.
I really want to play it. Okay.
You need to play it. Honestly, you would like, I'm not saying you'd like it more than Still Wakes the Deep, but I think as a set-in, combat, character, you will really like it. And I think more people should play it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got a 5 locked.
Yeah, that ain't moving.
Yeah,
we got that there.
He's got number 5. That's it. Pipe down now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I know what number 1 is as well, but that's kind of it. That's as far as I go with my knowing what things are thing.
I don't have a fucking clue where
I need to think about what my order would be here. I love them all.
I mean, I think Still Wakes the Deep is comfortably 5, right? Because we agonise about getting it in, so that can lock at 5, right?
Yeah,
we're good with that. You can bold that out if you want. That's 5.
I can, but it's already in 5, so it's sort of
yeah.
Now it's bolder. So
I'm not sure that Rebirth doesn't go in 4 because we ummed and ahed about its inclusion.
But I still
in the
don't
list.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're
See, of this, the only one. Yeah, so 2, 3, and 4, I could comfortably put pretty much wherever in 1, 2, and 3, if you get me, because I haven't really played that much of Like a Dragon, and I'm still.
Yeah, I need to know how.
I need to defend Like a Dragon. I think because I respect why it won't be number 1. Right, I acknowledge that, even though it's Chris White's number 1, I acknowledge why it won't be the site number 1. But what they do in terms of narrative, while the thing about these games is that they're always super serious and the silliest shit you've ever seen, and we've said this so many times, so I'm not going to waylay the point too much on that. But what they do in this game that they don't and haven't had to do with any other game in its long lineage of Yakuza games is they have now finally fully handed the reins over from a character who has been their main character in their video games for PS2 era, however long that was, that now you can play a game, a Yakuza game, or a mainline Like a Dragon game as Ichiban Kasuga, and you do not think, oh, I'm being shortchanged because I'm not Kiryu. And that is all about the way they tell the story. At the point in the, there's various points in this game where Kiryu and Ichiban are together, they are apart, they are together, they are apart. And then what they then start to do in this 60-hour, if you're lucky, story game, is they weave individual narratives for both characters at the same time, pushing both. So all of a sudden, you've got two distinct stories that are working together, and it never drops a beat. It does surprise you. The twists aren't necessarily the things you see coming all the time. And the biggest thing about that story for me is that you go into it expecting a certain thing has to happen. I'm not even going to go into names at this point because there's just no need yet. One of the main characters in Like a Dragon has cancer. And it's one of those things where you don't know at the start of the game, but it's very quickly, he's had treatment, he's had the works, it's not going away. This cancer's not going away. So you are playing the whole game with Titanic's there. Do you know what I mean? The whole game, there's the Titanic movie. I know how this is going to end. I know how it has to end because that's what happens. And they do this and they go the whole time. Now, I'm not going to spoil what does actually happen. But what I will say is I initially thought there's two choices here. They either do something or they cop out, right? And what they managed to do by the time the credits rolled was make me feel like the cop-out was the correct decision, which is only down to the storytelling being masterful. Like, I was not ready. It's not me sitting here going, I was ready for that to happen. I knew it was going to happen. And listen,
I shouted out at the screen, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
You kept saying it. You kept saying like off podcast, like, "Oh, I know what's going to happen." And every time you see that, you must have noticed the conversation would just stop because I'm like,
"Well, yeah," because I was like, "Well, no, I thought that was you being respectful." But like,
I've got a question. I've got a question.
Let me just finish. I do 100% also respect and appreciate that there is a rather startling real life parallel that could be targeted at why it resonates so much with me. I respect that.
If someone brings that as the reason, they could right off.
But I'm just saying I do respect that it's going to resonate with me just tiny bit more because there is a very much a
question I'm asking though is why you said when you started, I appreciate it probably won't be number one. Why wouldn't this be the number one?
Lyle doesn't like the game and you haven't finished it. It would be my number one.
We don't have to
number one. I think
we don't have to persuade and finish the game to be number one.
Okay,
this is
I assumed wrong. But the one thing, like I say, the biggest thing I sort of walked away going from that is that I don't know how the fucking hell they managed to make me someone who is, it's our jobs to be opinionated. So opinionated is the wrong word, perhaps, but to give opinion. I don't know how the fuck I walked away from that not angry and thinking you copped out. That's cowardly. You stick in, and what I actually walked away was going, thank you. You actually. It's a bit like going into something thinking, right, there's two outcomes, and someone finds a third one, and it's better than either of the other two, and you're like, I now know what to expect from that studio, in terms of what the games will be, in terms of what the spin-off games will be. I think they nail every character, every story beat. I think they know.
Sounds like you're saying it should be number one, and I'm not against that. I think you should be fighting more for it and saying
there will come a time in a few years where they hit the sort of Atlas level where they need to think about, we need to change things up. They will, but right now I feel like they've hit their stride and their peak of like, we know what we're doing and we know how to do it absolutely perfectly. I just assumed Banishers would be number one. That's the truth.
I'd be willing to fight for Banishers, generally speaking, like I do. Like that's my number one, obviously, but also you can't discount that that you're quite passionate about that, and it's Chris White's number one as well. If he was here, he'd be arguing just the same. I'm not saying it's number one. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that let's not. I'm just saying let's not dismiss it as it's not number one.
No, I wasn't dismissing it. I just didn't think it would be number one on. I think everything I've just said there, I could give an impassioned speech about Final Fantasy VII because it's my favourite game of all time. I think Chris Pye could probably do a lot of that for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. He's waited 10 years for the sequel to that story. So what I'm saying is I just assumed that it wouldn't. I'd need support from someone like Chris.
Fair.
As well as Chris White. I just honestly thought this was one of those categories where it's like, Banishers has won it.
Right. Okay.
What do you think, Chris Hyde?
I'm really struggling, right? Because it's really funny what Mick said at the start of this entire category, that it's been like doesn't feel like there's that many good stories. There's fucking 4 great stories here for me for various different reasons, and I'm really struggling to go, what order would I put? I always had in my mind those 4, like they were the 4 for me, and I'm like, okay, they're definitely got to be in the top 5. I've got to fight for that because I feel passionate.
Does recency come into it? Do you think for you? Because you've played, most of these.
I've played Final Fantasy Rebirth was one I played the furthest of time ago. The other 3 I've finished very recently, so I don't think so.
See, that's a shame because I had another defense there because Like a Dragon is the one I finished the longest ago. So I was going to say, well, still stuck in there. You know what I mean? It's like, does Dragon Age: The Veilguard have a brilliant story that's better than the 3 above it? Not the game. We're not saying is it a better game. The overall actual main story. Or is it?
I think it carries its story elements through very well. I think for Dragon Age, I think Dragon Age is less like story beats. There's a lot of memorable stuff. Do you know what I mean? That happens in the storyline of that game. And I think the way it ties up the end with the beginning is very, like, at a certain point you see things coming. It was spoiled for me slightly, but as soon as it was half spoiled, I went, oh yeah. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, like it's fair. It's what I thought. But it's still quite clever, I think. And I do think that, and the stuff with Solus, the villain, like it subverts. What's the word? It subverted my expectations somewhat with Solus.
So, okay, I still don't know what order I want these games in, but I'll talk. I
still think Banishers was better.
For me, the thing with the story of Dragon Age, I think it's almost in some ways the opposite of Metaphor re Fantasia, where we said that main story versus like the companion stuff along the sideway. I think the main story is a lot stronger than some of the companion stuff in terms of the writing. But we're judging this on main story, and I think that's where it comes in, right? I think there's a lot in here. I think I referenced the 10 years, right? Different BioWare team. A lot of people crying out, it's not my BioWare. They won't get it. They won't get the background. They won't get the lore. And both through the middle all the way through to the end, there is so many, I guess, reveals in the story that tie up so many kind of lore elements and impactful elements that carry on the story that hark back not just to previous games in the series, Inquisition and further back, but also the very lore of the world that this existed in. You learn about the creation of elves, of the dwarfs, things like really big meaty concepts are kind of revealed in this game that they kind of didn't have to, but it plays into the story of what Solus is doing. And sorry,
I had a question. No, yeah, you can continue. I've got a question for you after too.
And then I think the way the main story itself ends. Now there is a conversation around multiple endings, which we can have at some point, given what I said earlier about choices. But I think the canon ending is obvious, and I think if you go by that, then I think that is a really strong kind of arc for Solus and a justifiable.
But that's what I said. Like where Like a Dragon has handed the torch, so has the Veilguard. They
literally
the way it ends is literally the end of that chapter, and like a dragon, it is now fully handing the mantle to the next, whatever that may be. I don't know the world enough, but like the Veilguard is 100% them bookending everything, like a dragon for me does. Like, so that's what I mean. That's why I said like you could give the similar speech, less cancer involved, but like. Do you know what I mean? It's really difficult, but like,
yeah. But I was really impressed because I was worried that
they wouldn't get it. Like
they wouldn't get
it. Yeah.
And I was so impressed how well they got. I mean, my wife was waxing lyrical because Christ on a bike, she knows everything about everything, right? With the backstories, and she was really impressed with all the kind of the way it plays into a lot of the lore and the reveals and stuff. And I just think the ending is really well done and executed as well. So I guess it's just whether that resonates with
what was
as many people
to you about it.
I was fine, but it's not really so much. Like, one thing always bothers me about Dragon Age, and it bothered me about Dragon Age this time, ever since the first Dragon Age, or maybe since Dragon Age 2 when it became more apparent. But like, there's a whole thing. The whole point of Dragon Age Origins is you're a Grey Warden. You go through that rite of passage where you drink the Darkspawn blood and you maybe die, but if you don't, you develop the power to fight the Darkspawn, which is great as a main character protagonist of the first game. But then every time since then, you've just been a normal schmo fighting and killing Darkspawn, and I've never understood why that. Like, what I don't like.
It's to show off character creator.
Yeah, but this is the thing, because Veilguard does the same thing where, and.
You create this massively impactful hero who may never be seen ever again because it's a unique creation.
Yeah, maybe, and you don't need to, like, the whole thing with the Darkspawn is just like, there's Darkspawn, we'll just kill him. And like, I don't understand, like, I feel like Veilguard more than anything, and when you said earlier, not my Veilguard, or not my BioWare or whatever, and I don't want to champion the arseholes, but some of that, I felt during Dragon Age. Some of that I could kind of understand because doing the Veilguard, because once again, I feel like the people who write this universe, they don't remain consistent to their rules a lot of the time. Like, and that bothers me in the story. The things like the Grey Warden, you can take a Grey Warden with you, but you don't need to. But if you don't take him, you don't need him, and you can still fight the Darkspawn. And like Rook is kind of this character who Varric hires. The preamble to the game is Varric has hired Rook, and then Rook meets the characters and Varric introduces him. Mine was a her. These characters don't know Rook. Whether whether Varric's there or not to be, in the room and telling them to trust Rook, but everybody just fucking does what Rook says. And my Rook was kind of like a pisshead ex-assassin, Johnny come lightly. But that's the character I was playing, and that's no, she wasn't. But that was the character I was. No, she had the biggest tits I could give her. But that was like. but that was But for me, I mean, she was Kunari. So, but yeah. So for me, that kind of, and I felt that, and I don't know why I keenly felt that this time in particular, because I play a lot of RPGs with a lot of characters.
Yeah, but I think it's because you care. It's a different. It's a different.
So Zoe and I have talked about this, right?
Yeah, I loved Origins and 2, and I love all the Dragon Age games. Like, I never felt that 2 was particularly weaker than the others. I really enjoyed it, being Hawk, but that had the same kind of problem where you've got a Grey Warden on your party. But if you don't take them, it doesn't matter, because the Darkspawn are just little fucking gremlins or ogres, and then you do the same thing to kill them as you do to kill everything else. You can kill a dragon without a Grey Warden with you. And I know that's me picking on one particular point, but that, in Veilguard in particular, the world of Veilguard felt less like the world of Dragon Age and more like the world of high fantasy. I'm not saying, I don't want to use the word generic.
Listen, I think there's a few reasons for it, right? And it's decisions that they've taken. I think firstly, the Rook thing, I've had this conversation with my wife. I think the way the Veilguard, I mean, it's in the clues in the fucking name, although they did this with Inquisition, but to a lesser extent. Rook is a kind
Inquisition, you were the boss. Like you were made the boss because of your...
Rook is an anchor for the companions, aren't they? And there's a lot more made of their journeys than there was in Inquisition. There was there was missions with characters, but this is, there's literally, clear people and clear factions, and it's all very sort of split out, isn't it? And I think the other part, which I think is an interesting decision, is the fact that you're in a lighthouse, which is completely separate from everything that's going on, and so you never feel the jeopardy of the world because you're literally not in it, because you're in this little safe hidey spot. And of course, with like, what was it, Sky Hold? I always say Sky. I didn't say Skyfall sometimes because that's James Bond, did it? Like, you were still in the world though, and you still felt like you had to retreat there and stuff in Inquisition, in case no one knows what I'm talking about. So I do think, because of those decisions that they've made to execute that story, there is elements like that. Whereas, like I said, the Inquisition had a gammy hand, and that's why he was the Inquisitor, right? That was, the reason. I think the Grey Warden stuff, Zoe might bitch slap me for getting this wrong. I think that's more Archdemon stuff, more certainly how it plays out in this game, and I think that's where they went for it more, in terms of the requiredness of Grey Wardens is more Archdemons than Darkspawn. And that, I think, has been the case for a long time.
I think that probably is the case, but I've never felt that it was that.
I think it's fair to say that there's almost, this is a weird comparison, there's almost a Super Mario Galaxy Odyssey thing going on here, whereas at some point they're going to have to realize we can't, in the first game, the ending, spoilers for people that haven't played Origins, it's killing an Archdemon, right? And you do that multiple times in Veilguard. And at some point you go, well, there's going to be a diminishing returns. At some point, I'm going to kill a universe.
It's the Marvel thing, isn't it? Where they keep coming up with a big bad. But
you've got to come up with a bigger and bigger bad.
Kill, say, Wanda or something.
Exactly that. And I think that is a problem. If they keep it going to 5 or 6 or whatever, then at some point they've got to find something that is perilous, that isn't just, we had gods this time. How much bigger do you go?
The other gods that we didn't mention in the game have got out.
I mean, ironically, they do.
That's a video game problem, though, isn't it? They have to.
Yeah. And there is mention of stuff, but that's going down needless tangential paths that could happen. But I just really, like I say, maybe it's slipping down the top 4 because of there's not as much passion, but I was just really impressed with the lore, how they tie it together, the handover piece that you mentioned, the Solus arc. I really enjoyed it. The main story a lot.
I tell you as well, they did a good job, I think, with the pacing, because a game where you've got multiple choices and you can go to multiple places, and then you're going to do this and piss this character off, or you're going to do this and this character might die, or you're going to dick around and do some side quests for a bit. But the way it ties together and manages to still feel like you're kind of running out of time, but you've got to go and do this side stuff. Like, you don't have to, but the way it explains it narratively, and and it those moments where you go back and you have a little sit down the coffee table with everybody and have a discussion about it, and that always feels like it's moving it on in a meaningful way. But yeah, I'm not saying I've had no problems particularly with the story of the Veil.
This may be the nail in the coffin. The only thing I will say about the story that I think was a little ham-fisted is the bit around the coffee table, like you say, where they go, maybe we should have less distractions. Yeah. Yes, I think if we were less distracted, then we'd do a better job at the end. Oh, and then there's a thing where it goes, have you finished all the side quests? And then are your characters not distracted? Good, then go and do the final mission. I know that's really
it's better than the stories that stop you and go, finish this list.
I think, see, the truth of it is, I think one of the reasons I gelled with Veilguard so much is I think it's quite a gamey game. I think it really is. I think it is really, and
it really is.
So I think if you take those things out, I don't think the story's mind blowing. In terms of, I understand what you've all said, but it's just I can't go with you on that journey because I just don't have the lore, affection, or knowledge that you guys have, and that's totally that is what it is. But I think I get what you're saying about those things. Those are the gamey moments. But if you take them out, I don't think I enjoy that game as much. and that's as maybe. But like where we are right now, and after a massively long discussion, I do wonder if that's close to the actual list that it's going to end up.
I think that might be the list.
So do I, but I don't want to say that having just had a 20-minute discussion about a game, if that makes sense.
I mean, I could argue Banishers for number 1, and I'd probably get maybe some support, and maybe you guys would even consider it. But I don't think... I haven't played Like a Dragon, and you've got crazy affection for that game, as does Chris White, as does Chris Hyde.
Yeah.
I just think
and I feel like
Banishers do this thing where they somehow make you laugh and cry a lot.
Well, this is
game.
And
I don't know how they do it because it's so stupid. I mean, there's one bit where you're basically playing fucking Crazy Taxi, but you're driving up the side of buildings on a bike, and then the next minute you're like crying over cancer.
The more I've thought about this, it's been an emotional day so far because I've been picking apart 4 games. The more I've been thinking about this in terms of where I would go, right, okay, what would I have as number 1? I do think that order is my order.
I think so too.
And I think that, and I do just want to say, right, about the additional thing that you've not mentioned yet, Adam, about Infinite Wealth, which for me would be the pitch as to why it's won, is that alongside the backdrop that Adam has explained about the whole cancer thing and this thing in the back of your mind that something final is going to happen, the Titanic moment. The game, incredibly respectfully and interwoven into the stories and sub-stories, basically pays homage to however many years we're talking of all of the games that have gone before in that series by making you kind of revisit like memories and adventures that this character's had in the past in a really sort of emotional and respectful way through various side missions, but also ones that are in the main path as well. And I just think games don't get to do that very often because you don't tend to have legacies in games where you create something. And also if you do create a legacy like Mario, you tend to not go, well, Mario's got cancer. So like there's a pod title if we had them. So I was incredibly impressed, not only with the main story and the beats that it was talking about, because they're very emotional, but they've done that before with like Song of Life and The Man That Erased His Name, right? But I was incredibly impressed with, and I didn't get all these references, by the way, because they go all the way back to all of the games and all of the
2005, I think the first one.
Right? So, but there's so many references. If you're a fan of this series, the respect that it gives you for having stuck by this series and this character through so many years, knowing that this could be the final act, I think is incredibly well done, but interwoven within the game in a way that is still kind of Yakuza. And I was just really, really impressed with how they did that. It wasn't just like a montage at the end. It was a very respectful, integrated section of the story, which felt very real to the way that they do things. Yeah. And I'll also say, whilst we spent a lot of time talking about the story of the one character, the story and the beats and the ending for the other main character, I thought is exceptional and shows a true understanding of why we love, for very different reasons, these two characters, one that's passing on the torch to the other. They share similarities, but they're different, and we love them for different reasons. And how that was implemented in that ending, and again, I'm being vague because I don't need to spoil it if no one's going to challenge it, I thought was so well done. And I thought that the ending of that game was brilliant and played tribute to both characters really well. So having thought about all that, I'm happy for it to be number 1. But Banishers is great.
What's Chris's? Where's Banishers on Chris's list? Is it number
4th?
But he hasn't finished it.
No,
see, Banishers is my number 1. But like we said when we were talking about best character, it's so the thing that's different, I think, about Banishers on this list is, even though it's a fantasy game, even though it is a fantasy game, it does deal with the supernatural and spirits, and it's kind of in a weird version of like Frontier America that's not quite Frontier America, and do you know what I mean? They use real world place names and stuff. Like he's Scottish, and they're in the America or the New World or whatever they call it in that game. I can't remember now, but it's kind of like a weird fantasy version of it. So it is in a fantasy world, but what grounds that story from start to finish is the two leads, is that relationship between those two. And even though the story, I think because the choices are really clever in that game, because we said earlier it's difficult to have a coherent narrative when you've also got choices. That game's got some of the most difficult choices to make in the moment. Yeah. Yet the game itself continues afoot. There's nothing disturbs the pace. I know it changes the ending. And I know that if you make those choices different, because some of the choices are more binary than they appear to be. Like there is a good and an evil way to do it. And you can sort of
perspective of good and evil, Mick.
All of the choices are binary. It's that they disguise every single one of them into feeling like there's so much more than that.
Yeah. And I mean, you can course correct it. It gives you an opportunity to kind of course correct a bit throughout.
Gives you two, I think.
Yeah, but you don't know that at the time. You don't know the actual impact of anything you're doing. But
I think it does a really good job of threading that storyline of these two, because the story of that game isn't about like we've got to save the world. It isn't about these meeting of two beloved characters. It's not about. I think
the story is deeper than that, though, because the thing is, that's
what I'm saying. It's a personal story. But
what I'm saying is that there is actually a wider story that you don't know because you got the good ending.
Yeah.
By getting the bad ending, I
think the bad ending is canon, personally.
I think it could be
because if you get the good ending, it ends. And I'm not, without spoiling it, if you get the good ending, the story ends. It's done.
But that I think in itself is very clever, because I was gutted. After 30 hours, the ending I got was the bad ending, and it is a bad ending.
But your ending had a hook. Your ending has a sequel.
That's what I'm saying. So I went away and I felt quite cold for weeks. Like, that's fucking hell, that's harsh.
But then when
I talked to you about it, it suddenly dawned on me, actually, that's context you didn't get.
If you go back, right, because I had the... If you go back, you didn't tell me this till afterwards, but I played it very recently to pick up on it. If you go back now and play that game again, knowing your ending,
well,
apologies to people listening, but we don't have to spoil it for the purpose of this conversation. If you go back and play it, there's so many conversations that now make sense.
Make more sense, yeah.
Because otherwise, you just think everyone's like, a lot of the witch character in that, they feel like they're talking in riddles. It's like, I'm up, I'm down, I'm black and white, what am I, kind of thing. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Whereas now when you hear that, you're like, that's what you're talking about.
But you only get that because the context of my bad ending.
If I
was distraught. I was like,
if I got it after spending 40 hours
exactly
playing it, might have been a bit miffed.
But
I'm glad I got the good ending, but I did go back and watch the bad ending. I've seen it, and like I said, that seems like the canonical ending. Like that's what happens.
It does, but it also, and I can tell you personally, because it happened to me, feels like the developer just punches you in the gut. But when you reflect,
you've got to listen to what the witch says. She does warn you, mate.
I know it was my fault. I get it was my fault.
Stick to a plan and see it through.
Yeah, don't fuck about.
Never binary.
Fuck about and find out.
Yeah, exactly, mate. I was a cunt for the entire duration of that game, and it paid off.
Yeah, but just because you acted in real life, I tried to do the same, and I couldn't be that. You see?
Nah. See, I just did nice all the way, and still. So that's clever as well,
yeah,
because
but some
that
of them
as well.
Aren't nice. They don't deserve.
No, it's the definition of cunt and nice.
That to me, that's clever as well, because this is something that I've just so. If you play the game and you go, I'm going to do everything good, like I did. I deliberately made every good choice, never made a bad choice, regardless of what I felt, because I wanted that ending.
Yeah.
You played it the opposite, right? And we got the good ending.
Good
right?
endings.
Adam did the normal human natural thing of make the choice. Make the choice. If you make the choice, not based on I'm in a game, so I've got to do good or evil because I want Paragon or Renegade points. If you do the natural human thing and go, well, I think you're right, so I'm going with you. But next choice, I think you're right, so I'm going with you. And it's not necessarily good or bad. Then you get the canon ending. To me, that's really fucking clever.
But listen to me. Between Like a Dragon and Banishers, I've had enough of real life right now with the way you're describing that and the way I've had enough of it. I know. And
I will say,
I think
really
that
like...
it's just that's a genuinely very clever way
it
to
is,
do
but in the
what they
moment
did.
you don't. I only have the context because you had good endings. You only have the context, so it does require a double playthrough if you are just not chatting to other people about it. I'm not saying that's a positive or a negative. I'm just saying.
I think
Chris
there's a very
not
interesting
have that context.
It's
without me
incredibly
saying it.
interesting that none of us have had the same ending.
I think there's 5, isn't there, Mick? We actually ended up emailing the developer at the time, didn't we? Because I was so
like that.
Yeah,
but I think there's not much difference between several of them. Like there's
there's not much more could have gone wrong. I mean, for me, like there's not much. I mean, again, with too much real life really at the moment for me. But like, there is not much more that could have gone wrong in my ending, and I really didn't feel like I deserved it. But maybe Mick's on the money there that I didn't deserve it. But bad things happen to good people sometimes, and sometimes if you stay the path. I don't know.
The
one thing I just want to say.
Look, I'm not fighting for this to be. I'm not pushing this. I if it stays at number 2 because Like a Dragon wins, I'm happy because Like a Dragon feels like it deserves the spot.
Yeah, I think I agree. The one thing I do just want to say to give it its due is, as much as we're talking about Mick was the nice person and I was the cunt for the entire adventure, I do think the game does a really good job, because I think that's what you're supposed to think. It's about selfless and selfish, right? I think that's what you're supposed to think. And I was selfish, right? But I think the game does a really good job when you explore the whole kind of thinking behind why the ghosts themselves exist and how they manifest and why, and how that compares to the big bad. Actually doing what I did was actually the better thing to do. And if the game explores that through conversation, which you probably wouldn't have had because you chose the different path, which is the selfless one. And I think it does a really good job of at least making me feel like less of a cunt throughout the story, because I think that's what you're supposed to feel like. You're supposed to feel like, well, this is doomed, so now I'm going to save everybody else for the sake of not saving this relationship. Whereas actually, they do a really good job of going, no, actually, one way of looking at this is people's fuckaboutery in all of those side missions have created all of these issues. That's what's caused the big bad, which caused the big twist to happen in the first place, which caused the whole dilemma between good and bad that you've got. So actually, if you solve all those flipping problems, you can be together because it wasn't your fault in the first place. I'm like, yeah, fuck you guys, I'm going to do my thing.
Well, also, that's a great ending. The payoff when you come to fight the final boss and that how you resolve that and you find out why. Yeah. It all happened. That was really good. I hadn't even thought about that until you just reminded me of it. That's a fantastic denouement for that, for the story itself. Like, regardless of what happens to Red and Antea afterwards, that is just really good. And you kind of sense it as you get through, because you start to meet some people and go, well, you're a prick, so maybe you deserve what was going. But like when it actually becomes apparent, it's quite a good. It's not so much of a twist because you kind of see it coming.
No, and it's
good. Yeah.
So I listen. I really love it as a. There's not that all of these stories are kind of well trodden, but I've not quite played a story quite like Banishers. It's probably the most unique in a weird sort of sense, in from a storytelling perspective. But I for me, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth hit me slightly more in terms of when it executed its beats, and particularly at the end. But like I say, I do think that homage bit as well was extra special. That it doesn't.
I'm happy with that list. We don't have to fight.
Am I locking this? Am I locking this?
Do it.
Right.
Rebirth's got a great story.
It does.
People know it's it's not new.
Could it?
Fifth place is Still Wakes the Deep. In fourth place, Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Third place, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Second place, Banishers: Ghost of New Eden. And the winner of Best Story for 2024 is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. So it's the last part of day 4 where we get to talk about best moments, which is definitely going to be spoilery. Last year, come on, have a guess.
Sea of Stars.
Sea of Stars.
That was number 3. A special goodbye, Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
Only one?
Yeah, sorry, mate.
Yeah, you wouldn't let more than one because you're a heartless cunt.
Yeah, that sounds about
Mario
right.
Wonder.
Bring your shit games to it.
Number 5 was Karlach's Finale from Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, Alan Wake.
Alan
Wake.
Right,
no, Alan Wake didn't win it.
But it was on there, right?
It was number 2, the musical. Silencing the Voice in Paranorma Sight was 4th, but the winner was Kiryu's Tears and Like a Dragon Gaiden.
Oh, yeah, the one where I... Right,
Yeah.
now, can I just say, now, because I made that without having seen it, I was... Vindication, right? That deserved best moment, even though I hadn't seen it. So none of your shit this year, Mick. I was right.
And on
that was good.
On that
yeah,
note,
you're right now. You weren't right then. The argument was
clear,
still sound at the top.
Lads, look, listen. There's about 300 games moments here to list. So argue all you want. Can I just read this list of 30 first, please? Right, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth Sending. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth Snow. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth Safe House. Little Guardsman, Disney musical. Little Guardsman, So You Think You Can Save a Princess. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the opening section. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, Your First Decision. Banishers, An Early Shock. Banishers, The Good Ending. Space Marine 2, Dreadnought vs. Hellbrute vs. Helldrake. The Thaumaturge, The Last Supper. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, The Date, and Rebirth's Finale. Alone in the Dark, The Throwback Angle. World of Goo 2, The World of Goo. Helldivers 2, Hellbomb. The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom, Swordsman. Cryptmaster Altars. Astrobot has got 4. End of World 2, Cheese Mouse, Casino, and The Tree. The Plucky Squire, Going 2D to 3D. Metaphor Refantasio, Get to the Anus. Still Wakes a Deep Prick. And Dragon Age has 5. Solus's Backstory, Varric, Manfred, Sacrifice, and Ending.
Easy.
Yep.
No time. We'll get this one done in half an hour, I reckon.
Yeah.
Okay. The Space Marine 2 one I added, because none of you will have seen it, I don't think.
So no, there's a lot of hells in there, Mick. What's going on?
Yeah. It's just a really cool bit. Like, this game it's one of those games that's built, it's like a Gears game, it's built on its set pieces. Like, you fight through the missions, everything's exploding. Then all of a sudden something really cool happens. It's in, like, the in-game engine goes off and stuff happens in front of you. And, like, there's a bit where you're fighting through this level and you're in this corridor and all of a sudden, like, a Hellbrute. So Warhammer 40k is too much to explain, but a Dreadnought is basically a guy who's sort of almost dead, down to the point where he's just a brain that's left, and they put them into a massive robot basically, so he can fight on for eternity and serve the Emperor. And the Chaos version is a Hellbrute. That's a big mutated chaosy version of a Dreadnought. And there's a bit where you've advanced down a corridor and a Hellbrute smashes through the wall and you think, shit, I've got to kill it. And then a second later, this Dreadnought comes through and just fucking annihilates it. And then he's all like, lead me to the slaughter. And if you're a fan, it's like, oh, I'm fighting with a Dreadnought. And then you follow the Dreadnought on and a couple of, like, he's with you for a little while. And then a couple of minutes later, there's this giant fucking chaos dragon thing called a Helldrake that lands on this tower in front of you. And the fucking Dreadnought just picks up this half a tank and just chucks it like it's making a speech. It like lands and starts with a lofty, I will destroy. And he just picks up this half a tank and just yeets it at this thing's face. It's just like, as a fan, it just made me laugh, and it was a bit that just stuck with me. And it's been shared a lot on social media and stuff by like fans of the universe, because it's just really on brand. And I just wanted to put it in there because it was my favourite moment of the year from pretty much any game. But I appreciate you guys either haven't seen it or probably wouldn't get the same kick out of it. But
I didn't think I'd seen it until you said it had been shared on social media and explained it, and I have seen it.
Yeah. It's done the rounds a bit because it's just really cool. But it's a rule of cool thing, and I wanted to put it on there because it was one of the things that's just stuck with me more than most things from games this year.
But it's a cut, you're saying?
But you can cut it, yeah.
Well, in the spirit of goodwill and all that, I'll fall on one I've put on here just to give it that shout out as well. Alone in the Dark, Throwback Angle. Very, very late in the game, not at the ending, but quite late in the game, you're getting close to revealing stuff that happens or has happened, and you go into a small room, and for the very first time in this Resident Evil style third-person adventure, it cuts to basically an old school Alone in the Dark Resident Evil fixed camera angle. Like, it just suddenly cuts to that in a room, and it's just super cool. And it's it's a very small moment, but it's just so cool. This bit they just chose because they know you've got to be in this bit for a little while because you're exploring the room, and they just suddenly do that, and it's just like a really nice throwback to those. Because Alone in the Dark is a very long storied series, obviously. Like people think about Resident Evil or Silent Hill, but Alone in the Dark is perhaps older than all of them, isn't it? I think at this point.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, it's just a cool moment. It's cuttable, easy one to get rid of when there's 29, I suppose. But yeah, just wanted to give it a little shout out because I really did like. It's not like an amazing game, but like that one moment was like, it's kind of cool.
That is cool.
What's a World of Goo one?
I'll talk about that and then we can get rid of it, as is tradition. So World of Goo 2 is a game that I was very excited about because I really liked the original World of Goo, and for like the first 2/3 of it, it feels like basically the same game as the first game. A little bit expanded on, and still very enjoyable to do this weird, making little bridges out of blobs. It's a cool thing to do. But then when you get to like this like second to last world or something, it's like pretty deep into the game anyway. The whole story of the game becomes that like you have traveled through time and you're in a future where you're seeing like sequels that are like decades and decades on of the World of Goo, and one of them is, I think it's World of Goo 7, and it's The World of Goo, and it's a gritty noir point and click remake of World of Goo. And you do this whole like story of like, this like dame knocking on the door of the private detective, and you'll click around all the environment and stuff, and then as the whole point of World of Goo is like you get as many of the little goo balls as you can to the exit, you'll like just click on a desk and you'll open it, and just in the top corner in the normal UI, you'll just a goo ball will appear and it'll be like, oh, you found a goo ball and you got your collectible, and it's like, I'm just playing this weird noir game, what the hell? And it's a really cool twist in a game that like I really did end up enjoying a lot, and like there's multiple of these kind of weird spin-off versions of World of Goo from an alternate reality that I think are very cool, but that was the one that was definitely the coolest, and yeah, I really appreciated it. But at the same time, it's not going to make a top 5 for everyone, but a very cool moment in a game that we won't get to shout out otherwise.
Yeah,
seems fair.
I have another really quick cut I think I can make. Echoes of Wisdom swordsman moment. Right now, I actually think that is a really cool moment. So when we went to preview
I have a lot
it,
of those.
Pardon?
Swordsman moments.
Okay. When I went to preview this, obviously when there's certain things you see that you aren't allowed to talk about till like you review it. There's things people don't want spoiling, and I've got a shit memory and I'd forgotten what they were, so normally you check it and you check the list to make sure you're not doing that. And Swordsman, I assumed would be the cut-off point of the preview because it's like such a big reveal of like, wow. Then it's like I looked around and like, okay, no one's stopping me playing, so I'll just carry on. And that wasn't the boss fight. There was basically you stopped playing at a boss fight, and I assumed it was that because of this big reveal. And then they showed it in a trailer, and I was like, like, because that was a really cool moment.
That's one of my favourite parts of the game. I think that's really good.
I do too, but then it's like they showed it in a trailer, and it's like, and also I think it makes you think there's going to be more like that, and there isn't. So it's
I get that.
So I think
how is there not?
No, that is.
No, I thought the same.
I was going to get more transformations and stuff, but you just don't.
I thought they even said that in the trailer.
No,
that
you
it
just
was...
don't. You don't. You don't even have to ride a horse, which they showed in the trailers. I forgot there were horses, to be honest with you, because I spent most of the game without one. Like, there's a lot of... It's very much like Breath of the Wild. There's a lot you can miss and not do in that game because it's that kind of game.
Yeah,
but it's an easy cut, and we've got 26 still after it. So I do think we need to, at some point, have a look at Dragon Age and say there are 5 moments on this list of top 5.
I mean, we can go there now if you want and cut some. There's no way Dragon Age is doing a clean sweep of the top 5.
No, not for me.
Well, I know which one you really hated, so...
So that one first?
No, I didn't hate it.
You heartless bastard of a man.
Should we talk about that? Because it might be an easy cut.
24?
Yeah. Dragon Dragon Age.
Yeah, so we've all finished this, right? We all know. So I'm not going to spoil this stuff, but basically, like towards the end, after the point of no return, you have to make a decision of which one of your companions leads basically party Squad B, yeah. Because you split off into two teams, and as far as I know, I don't think there's any way to change the fact that whoever you pick between Davrin or Harding, I believe is the two choices, that person ends up dying at the hands of Gillenane, I think I want to say.
Correct.
And I mean, I don't, death in companion games, I do think is interesting and shocking. I do think, unfortunately, I didn't really care that much about Davrin, so that was probably why it was lessened a little bit.
Same.
He was the speaking least to Zoe about it.
Of all the characters, I think.
If Harding had died, the only reason why
I'd have reloaded the save.
One, I thought Davrin was the better pick anyway, but two, she was my lover. If she'd have died, I might have switched off the game. Fucking hell, so I think it does depend on the character, and that I think Davrin is the worst character of the companions in terms of arcs.
Easily. I just think he doesn't ever let you warm to him, and that's maybe good writing in a way, but that's not what this is. This is best.
The arc of the game is his Griffin, not him. The big choice.
I'd say
the big choice at the end is where the Griffin lives.
I liked him as a character.
I'm a lot more sad about what happens to the Griffin than happens to him. Quite honestly,
that's what I mean. When Asan flies in with him, I'm like, "What are you doing? No, save yourself. He's fucked anyway. Just why are you? No, you can fly. What
that's
are you doing?"
That's kind of weird now when I think about it. Actually,
yeah,
but his whole
I get
arc
it
is
because they're a pair.
No, but his whole arc is to get the Griffins to thrive.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like there's 500 of them. There's like 7, maybe tops.
Yeah, there's like 12, I think. Yeah.
You think 12? Well, even still, there's fucking not now, is there?
Well, no,
because it's suicides.
Yeah, fucking yeah. So I think I agree in that sense.
The best moment
I think it's a moment that you remember because literally. But we talked about it in the previous category that Rook is there to bring these companions together, and then when you lose one of them to a story beat, that is impactful.
Is there any way to save everybody?
No,
is it like a Mass Effect?
No, you have to lose one.
It annoyed me finding that out because I finished it pre-release and I was like, well, I really don't know how I could have done anything different because I did every mission, everything that came up. And yet he still died. Only obviously once people have data mined and found everything after that you realise someone has to die.
Whoever you pick dies. Yeah,
I kind of didn't like that. I kind of wish it feels less impactful.
Well, it's Mass Effect, isn't it? They've done it in Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, you can survive. You can save everyone.
No, not in Mass Effect.
It seems odd that you have to pick between those particular characters as well.
Trust me, so
you're predisposed to like
one you had to pick, and apparently,
Mass Effect 1 you did. You had to pick, and one of them died, and then one that didn't. It loaded your save into like Mass Effect 3 when they come back.
This moment,
compared to some of the others in Dragon Age, it's not the same.
So can I delete that one?
Yeah.
Can I offer, while we're talking about Dragon Age, can I ask about one other one?
Yeah.
What does it mean when it's just Solus's backstory? Because that doesn't seem like a moment to me. That's sort of told throughout the game, isn't it?
So I have a question for people actually, because this is.
You're going to ask about when you put the murals, isn't it?
Yes.
I seem to have had them all, and so I
did
all of them.
So therefore, this moment thing all happened at the same time.
I don't think you're supposed to have it like that. I think that's our
unique
I did it
way of playing video games. I did it every time I went back to the.
Whereas
I had all at once.
I played the game like Adam, which is I will do all the side quests and then progress the main story.
Yeah,
and
fuck
so
saving the world. There's
a shopping list. Yeah. So what that meant is when you got to that bit in the main story, I had all of them ready to go, and so I could hear all of them in like 5 in a row.
I don't think that's how you're supposed to play.
Because I was shotgun in the game, so I was doing story quite a lot.
So
and
it's like 8 moments or whatever.
So for me, it was like like bang, 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 and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is insane. Whereas I think for you guys, maybe it was less impactful.
So I would argue that the way we had it, Chris, was actually not even that great of a moment, because I felt like it was like, not only was it like just information overload, it was like It wasn't even one stream of just a one long video. It was like, okay, now go to that bit and interact with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I kind of played it knowing, I think I've fucked up here. I think I was supposed to do this a different way.
I definitely got that vibe once I'd done it, but I was like, fuck you, game. I play games how I want to play them. But like,
I did what I did.
But like, I just, for me, I put it on there because I liked what it revealed. I was like, wow. When I heard some of the stuff, I was like, fucking hell, that's huge. That's really impactful for the whole lore of the world, like I said before, on story. So I think I'm probably
3 Dragon Age moments.
Yeah, no, I can see from that perspective that it's probably a cut. We can leave that game now and come back.
Yeah, we can move to another game because at least there's only no game with more than 3 moments now. No, there is.
There's Astrobot.
Yeah, Astrobot. Is there any of those that can come out of this? Because again, we're not going to have 4 Astrobot moments.
There's 2 I think could be cut from there quite easily, quite quickly, personally. But
there's one that can definitely be cut quickly for me.
Well, I worry that if I say them, there'll be everyone like, oh, I was going to say those 2 or those 2. But
I'll go and say which one I'd cut.
Okay, go on.
I'd cut Casino out of those.
Yeah, Casino and the tree for me would be cut.
So I really liked the tree.
I think the tree's great. The tree's one of my favourites.
Yeah, I think I don't want to be even talking about cutting End of World 2.
No, I mean that game. Let's just say for me, End of World 2, there was a moment where I was like, "Am I gonna cry playing a platform game?" Because there was a moment where I honestly was like, "Am I gonna cry playing Astro?" But no, and I didn't, but I nearly did. But Casino, we could just cut easily. It's just a really cool level.
But I didn't fight compared to End of World 2. As a moment, it just passed me. You said about it, and I was like, "Oh, what was so good about that?" You went, "Oh, I had a good mechanic." I was like, "Yeah, no, fair." But the others for me are stronger.
I mean, we're talking like with Casino and the tree, we are kind of talking full levels rather than a moment. But I would cut Casino.
I think at least cut Casino, and then now let's move away from Astrobot for a moment.
Yeah, now no game's got more than 3.
And I think let's get rid of the Plucky Squire again. Sorry,
I was going to ask about that.
Yep, didn't even spot that. Yeah,
it's basically the part of the game where it stops looking as good.
Exactly. It stops playing as good because the first time you do it, you have no weapons and nothing, and it becomes a fucking.
It's the worst
bad
bit,
stealth
isn't
game.
it?
It's the worst.
I think the worst bit of that whole game,
around insects and ants, and it's at least when you go back to 3D the next time you have weapons. But like that one, when you go there, I was like. I was really enjoying this sort of top-down. Reminded me was it a game called Ditto? Something Ditto? I can't remember. It reminded me of that, like this top-down, beautiful watercolor adventure.
I know what you mean.
And now all of a sudden I'm playing a stealth 2D game with insta-fail options, 3D game with insta-fail options. What are you doing? Like, that can go.
Yeah.
It could have been amazing, but I think the concept was amazing. And I think it did look cool going from 2D to 3D, but like the actual part where it becomes 3D and you're playing stealth is like, ooh.
Yeah. And then after that...
Okay.
No, go for it, Mick. Maybe you go in the same place.
There's one I'm itching to ask about, and everybody probably knows what it is.
Not yet. I know the one. Number 18.
Then, yeah.
Oh.
You're itching to ask about the Amos, are you?
Yeah, I bet he is.
We can talk about it, because we do have to really decide if it actually makes a serious top 5, I suppose.
Because I've not played the game, so I don't know what it is.
It is quite interesting. It's a good one, though, isn't it? Like,
I don't think it can make the list, though. It's just it's too stupid.
I don't know.
Do you know what? For me, right, Mick, right? I'll probably do it.
Tell me what it is.
We do. Yeah.
So, from my understanding of this is when you're going to find Heismay.
You're hunting Heismay.
Hunting Heismay, who's that rabbit dude from
I remember.
And you get swallowed by a sandworm. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So you're inside a sandworm, right?
Like
so
they do in Gears of War.
What's that?
They do it in Gears of War. Do you remember?
Yeah. So you're inside a sandworm, right? But you're not dead, and so you've got to escape. There's only 2 ways in and out of sandworms, Mick, as you can probably gather, right? The way you came in, or the other way, right?
Yeah.
And we ain't getting out the way we came in, so we've got to go out the other way. And so you meet. I think you meet an old man, don't you? Right at the start of the worm.
In the worm, yeah. Oh,
and he advises you that this is what you've got to do, right?
What does he eat?
What's that?
What does he eat?
Oh, I assume
they really try to address it and also don't address it. It's very weird.
Yeah,
it's very weird. No, I'm fine. I don't need rescuing. I'm here by choice. Yeah.
And then
mate.
just appears later. So presumably he did, do this as well. But
video games.
Yeah. But literally, so then you talk to him and it's like, okay, you've got to get here. And the mission title in the top left of the screen in capital letters just says, "Get to the anus." And that's the mission objective.
Do you actually do it? Do you sluice out the ass at the end?
So you're on a timer because you've got to get, if you don't get to the anus quick enough.
I don't know what we've become. He just asked a question and nobody even batted an eyelid. Do you sluice out of the anus? No, but even went.
Oh, I'm trying to.
We're just so desensitized to it.
Talk amongst yourselves for a second, because I sent you an image, Adam, not of anuses.
Well,
you didn't Google sluice out the ass and then send him what came up on.
No.
Google Images, surely.
It's really weird though, because this moment is one I sort of feel such affection for because it's so fucking stupid. But it's also there's games that will sort of they'll circle around that level of humour, and I wouldn't have put money on it being Atlas that just went "get to the anus" in the top of the screen. And I don't even know if they know it's funny.
They do.
Because if you had a game like High on Life a couple of years ago that did that, you'd go, "Oh yeah, whatever." We get to the anus, very funny. But then you got a game like Metaphor, which is like a Persona.
It's not otherwise funny. Like Metaphor is not a game I would consider humorous in any way. What's Chris?
Do I want to open
there
this?
is a bit of story where Stroll, because he says, "Gather round, children. This is the legend of Lord Stroll who crawled out the arse of a worm."
So there's some brilliant stuff. Yeah, so they know what they're doing. I guess is my point, because after they've been supposited, the reverse, excreted.
You laugh.
Deposited.
I think that's supposed to be a character moment where he's like, "Oh, Lord Stroll." I don't think it's supposed to be funny.
No, they make other puns just before that about shit and stuff. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's brilliant. That was, in terms of comic relief, was fucking superb for me. Now, listen, if it's too silly versus some of the other dramatic stuff that's on here, I'm fine. It just feels like I'm not sure it's any too.
I think we have to. Yeah, I think we have to park.
Sounds like a really clever, for a comedy, because there's not an awful lot of comedy stuff knocking about on this list. We've got to talk about games like, like Dragon.
I'd really
Age
rather we don't cut it yet. I'd rather
Banishers,
see.
But I'm glad you brought it up, Mick, because we got to talk about the anuses. So I think we should keep it for now.
We did.
And Life is richer for it. I think.
It is.
On that subject, should we talk about Prick?
Why not?
Why not?
Hello. I'm not the prick, by the way. I know about this.
Still
this
wakes
is a good
the deep
one.
prick.
Still wakes the deep's prick.
Still wakes the dick.
Oh, children, now.
Oh, yeah. So this is a nice character moment that I really enjoyed in Still Wakes the Deep, where you're on this failing oil rig where shit's going down with monsters and all sorts. And so Kaz, our hero, it keeps constantly from different people being told to go and do things. So being like, you've played a video game before, you're just a random character. And anytime you just wander over to someone, they're like, "Oh, then it's your job to go and do this." And, he's not really having it. He's like, "Well, why is this my job?" So he talks back to this other kind of higher up guy who tells him to go somewhere really fucking dangerous with loads of monsters. And the guy's like, "Well, I have to be here to operate the machinery. You don't know how to do it, so I'll go down. So you have to go down and do, go past all the fucking mutants and get to this particular bit of the oil rig to, save the day and give us a chance of surviving." So you go down to this, I think it's a crane you're going to. You go down to this crane that's on the oil rig, and this character says to you, radios you, and he says, "Okay, I think I can see you over there. Can you just wave to show me that you're there?" And Kaz just he hangs up the phone and he just flips this guy off and he just says, "Prick," because he's fucking fed up of being the hero in this situation. He doesn't want to be. He just wants to fucking get back to his wife and kids. And it's just this moment where it's like, it's that little bit of levity, but also where you're like, yeah, I shouldn't be fucking doing all this. Why is it my job? I'm just a random electrician on this oil rig, and I keep having to go to every fucking end of it to press another switch for someone who won't fucking do, the shit job of sneaking past every monster. And it's very cool. I really like it. Again, probably not top 5, but yeah, a nice moment for sure.
In that, there's 21.
There's still 21.
Listen, I don't want to be harsh on the game, but
I
don't think either Little Guardsman moments make this list. There's no. No,
and I think. So I don't. I think the So You Can Save a Princess is better than Disney Musical, but same. I think the one thing going against, certainly for Lyle, I think, is that you had that spoil in the preview, didn't you? And I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because when that happened, so Mick, you won't have played this, right? But they basically, so Lil, the person who's the guardsman doing the job for a gamble addicted dad, she just gets kidnapped one night, and you think, oh fuck, what's going on? This kid's been kidnapped. That's pretty dark. And then she just gets placed on this game show called So You Think You Can Save a Princess.
Right. Okay. I was wondering what this was. Now I remember it. Yeah.
And you have to pick between, you basically on this game show where you pick between one of 3 heroes to go and save a princess. And it's basically like a game show, right? It's the way it's done. And it's like I've said before, it's like LucasArtsy humor and stuff, well done through. But it's all themed through like a game show, and it's just really funny. And it is unexpected because you're like, you just think it's just to go through the daily cycle, or you're going to be revealed who's kidnapped her and why. And it's just for the purpose of this fucking game show that's just a load of nonsense. So again, it's just wacky randomness, but it was very unexpected. And it's the thing I remember from that game. It's like, okay, that's the 100%. Thing that sticks with me, because it was so different to the normal, right? Okay, here's the characters of this day that you've got to kind of see if you let them in. The whole Papers, Please typey style of the gameplay, I guess, throughout the main story. So I thought it was very funny, very well done. If we said before, couple it with like the cool like voice acting and the art style. I think it's done really well. I don't think it's strong enough, and I don't think Disney Musical is funny because it's basically the juxtaposition of this lovely, happy singing wannabe Disney princess that ends up actually being a psychotic murderer. If you let her in, she'll fucking cause a rampage and stuff, and she's got a knife on her or whatever, and she's fucking murderous, and you need to kick her out. That's funny because it's like a juxtaposition, but kind of there's other examples of that in the game of people you think are good, you've got to like not let in, and people you think about they actually should let in and stuff. So it's kind of the premise of the.
I kind of want to play it now.
It's a good little game. It's a good, quirky, happy. It might be a bit twee for you, mate. But I think it's the right.
I don't mind twee if there's murder.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, there's enough hangings.
But I'm deleting both, right?
I think so. I'm glad that they needed to be on there as mentioned, but I don't think they make top 5.
We're running out of games that don't have multiple entries.
I could cut 2 more. I don't think they're going to be too popular, but I can cut 2 more that stick out to me so far. First is the Thaumaturge Last Supper, because maybe it's because I just literally finished the game the past week or so. I just didn't think that was one of the. It's not a game of moments for me. It's a game of the. It's not a game of any specific thing. It's the sum of its parts. I really, more than many games on this list, that game needs every element to pull together, and it does. The Last Supper, the bit you're talking about, is quite late on in the game where you go to sit and eat a meal with Rasputin, and then a bomb goes off. And the reason it's funny how like some people like that's one of your moments that you put on the list, and how for me it's one of the moments I really didn't like in the game, because that was that's the split where you choices matter. So I was going with to meet Rasputin to basically tell him, fuck off, mate. I'm done with you. I'm done with your bullshit. I found people who aren't weird and, over here. So the explosion and him supposedly dying was like, and it also felt quite rushed. All of that, like Rasputin is like a main character in this game, like all the way through, and his change of character, his personality sort of shifting towards a darker. It just seems to happen, and it's just over and done with quite quickly. And then, as I say, I think, well, okay, he's dead. That obviously, if I had chose to side with him, perhaps he wouldn't be dead. And then he just isn't dead. And so,
yeah, I mean,
okay.
I put this on expecting no one else to have played it, and therefore it was one of those mentions, but we can delete it, right? So I'm not going to fight for it in the top 5. But I think the thing for me, and maybe I'm just like thick, and this, you know, this gap that could be true, but I'm sitting there like,
you're definitely not thick.
He does this, like Rasputin does this impassioned speech, and I've called it the Last Supper, like, but basically, because the theming of it is very much that, right? In terms of that, it's like, Jesus Christ, dial it down a little bit, and then he does say some ominous words, but it all goes really quiet, and he sort of walks off into this building. You're like, what does that mean? And I've just, to Adam's point, I've just sided with him. I'm down the route of we're busy mates, and I'm going down that route and stuff. And then all of a sudden, the cameras just sort of followed where he went, and then it just sort of doesn't do anything. And then a couple of seconds later, there's just this massive fucking loud explosion. It scared the shit out of me, and I wasn't expecting. I was like, holy fuck. Fuck, he's dead. Like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? I was like, fucking hell. At that time, when I added it to the list, I was like, fucking hell. I didn't know the later
I wonder
bit.
if we had a different scene slightly, because for me, he's walked away and gone to safety, and he's basically threatened you, and then the bomb's gone off. And my feeling was, he's just bombed me, because he was starting to film me as a threat. And then when everyone around you is like, oh, yeah, he's dead, I'm like, yeah, okay, what? I guess. I'm alive, having been at the centre of the explosion. He'd gone inside a house after threatening me, but he's dead. Video games. Do you know what I mean? And then he just pops up later, and it's like, what? I don't know. I just wonder if we got different scenes. It could be that we got different scenes. It wouldn't surprise me. That game's got a lot of choices that can chat, and depending on how you feed your pride,
I think how you have spoken to him earlier affects how he might speak to you later.
Absolutely.
Maybe
so I wonder if we got a different scene, or the same scene but totally different.
But how he talks to you about, maybe.
Because he basically walks off having. He doesn't say "you're fucked, sunshine." That would be a really weird twist if he suddenly did that. But he does basically like real ominous words, and then wanders off, and then there's a big explosion that you're seemingly the center of, and he's dead, but you're not. So it's weird. But I don't know. I just don't know if it makes a list of top 5.
No, it doesn't. Like I say, I never added it for it.
Right,
I wanted to mention it because it's the one moment I remember, apart from my ending. I
wonder if I had a better moment I could have added, but I don't think you'd have seen it. Oh well, we'll never know now.
We'll never know.
I quite like the moment where you basically summon all your salutors to scare someone. All of them, if you've got them all. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is very much a game of you may or may not have seen this, and it's a very small moment in an otherwise larger narrative. So, okay. Yeah, no, I don't want to spoil it.
Very interesting.
I want people to play it.
So many.
Yeah, when
play the fucking game, Lyle.
It's on consoles now as well. So like,
okay,
I'll cut it and we're down to 18.
Practically done.
Does anyone else have any, or shall I just go with my other one that I had, which is quite a big one, but I do need to do it.
I want to ask the question because I added it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Banishers.
Yep.
An early shock, right? Because it's a weird thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
So to be clear, this is when you realise the game's about someone else, not the person you thought it was, for want of trying not to spoil right.
I wasn't shocked by that because I already knew somehow. Like
that's why I'm asking if it is the best. Like it was a surprise to me.
I was surprised that you were playing as the other character. Not
because I think the trailer told you what.
Red. You're playing. The game is about Red McWraith, but you don't start as Red McWraith.
And I don't think I'd seen the trailer, or if I had, I'd forgotten it at the point when it happened.
Ah, right, okay.
So for me, I was like, okay, this is the character and he's the support, and then obviously that's not how the story ends.
No, it's quite the opposite.
So I put it in because I think it's, I wasn't expecting that twist, but if everyone else is like, no, it's not, then I think it's an easy cut, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it is well played. Well done.
I'd probably argue that the next one is an easy cut as well, really, because of how different. Because the good ending isn't that.
No, you kind of
like without
on this podcast, ending, you have said basically you got the good ending, but you kind of feel like that's not the right ending. So
yeah, and also because the good ending is kind of like, I don't want to say boring, but it's kind of very like, it's just an ending. It just gives you an epilogue, and everybody lives as happy as they possibly can.
My concern here is that I don't think the other moment on this list makes it either. And if we cut this now, we're basically cutting Banshee, which is fine because he's got number 2 in best story.
It's still all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like it's been shortchanged. I think the only thing I would say about good ending, to be really clear, before you do delete both.
I'm just
my good ending, which let's remember was the selfish cunty option. I thought was quite good because it is the culmination of everything I've been working for 50 hours to save that fucking relationship, right? So, like, I imagine, Mick, your good ending was like, right, the thing I'm easily able to do to everyone else, I've been able to do to my beloved
Yes, that's what you have to do.
Whereas mine is like, no, I've actually managed to undo something that's been in existence for 35, 40 hours.
Yeah.
And, she... I don't know how dramatic the conversation gets towards the end between Antea and Red, but there's a lot of resentment and unforgiveness from what happened at the very start of the game that causes her to die, right? Sorry, spoilers, right? Fucking hell, like, stay with us.
Category, come on.
Yeah, no, but also that the entire premise of the game is built on that knowledge, right? So, like, for me, my good ending of them getting, you know what it is, felt much more meaningful as a resolution to that journey.
When you put it, would have done. Well, when you put it that way, like, so that moment where you make the final decision, that was very impactful. I was emotionally, I got really emotional.
What moment where you make the final decision? Because I didn't get a moment where I made the final decision.
So you can. So I didn't get. So maybe not a final decision. I never got the option to save her at the end.
Nor did I.
Right.
But I still didn't get the same, because the trouble was this particular one for me is that you're talking about basically you and Mick are talking, Chris and Mick are talking about 2 completely different endings, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it either.
Yeah,
I didn't get
it either.
This is
where
Chris was able to.
It probably goes on a technicality, but I didn't want it to be dismissed as the good's not good, because for me, my ending was fucking great. I'm glad I got what I got.
Yeah.
And I'm not in the situation where, if I was, it's not the case of, I wish I played it Mick's way. No, I'm glad I played it my way for the resolution.
My ending was morally good. That was it. It was the moral ending, if you want to call it that. That's what it.
But I'm playing it for these characters, so fuck the world, and because the world's fucked itself, and so mine was good. But I do think has to be an element here where we're like, can we really have a moment on this list that only one of us has seen? And it because of the nature of the game, and I think the answer to that is no. And I think if the answer was maybe, it would have to be much better than it is in the greatest respect. I don't think
17. I'm gonna cut that, and I do think while we're here, I want to talk about the first decision. I think that is one of those decisions in that game that really sets its stall out, because it's really difficult.
Yeah,
I genuinely was one of those who was like, thank God it isn't timed, because I.
God, can you imagine if it was like you've got 10 seconds?
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Life is Strange does that, where the bars ticking down.
Yeah.
It does let you start. It knows, but I don't. It was a really cool moment, but it isn't as strong as.
I don't think it's as
most
strong.
of these moments.
It's not as strong because you remember it. I can remember the story that we're talking about because it stays with you because it's your first time. You never forget your first time. But I think it's a testament to the rest of that game that it's not like that's the only good decision you have to make. The hard decision.
There are tougher decisions than that, and there are more.
I think that is a testament to the game that it doesn't just you peak too soon, if you know what I mean, from a decision point of view, and. It's why it might struggle in this list.
Yeah.
But come on, Banishers has done pretty fucking well, and I'm glad it has.
Yeah, it has.
And it still may do well.
But this is no sluicing out of a giant worm's ass. Do you know what I mean? It's
That's
not.
Still
yeah,
there,
it's exactly that.
So we're down to 15. Do we want a quick recap? Just go through a quick recap here.
Yeah,
we're halfway.
Well, people might not know where we're at now.
Yeah, so Like a Dragon's got 3: the ending, the snow section, and the safe house. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle's opening. Rebirth has the date and the finale. Hellbomb from Helldivers 2, Crypt Masters Altars, 3 from Astrobot, End of World 2, Cheese Mouse and the Tree, Metaphor Fantasia Get to the Anus, and the Veilguard has Varric, Manfred, and the ending. I have one, unless someone else would like to go.
What's Cryptmaster Altars? Let's have a look at that.
Question,
because I haven't played
pretty much all the others.
I think, did we talk about this on a previous day or previous?
Yeah, we
talked
about Cryptmasters the other day. Yeah.
So Cryptmaster is a game where it's kind of like a dungeon crawler. We have talked about it, but you have to like type things in essentially to do things. And
Nicest Surprise, wasn't it? It wasn't.
We discussed it in Nicest Surprise.
I think so. Yeah, we might have discussed it a couple of times.
Definitely come up.
But yeah, the altars. I definitely talked about this in an episode of the Smaller Games Fun Time Chat podcast.
That might be what it is I'm thinking of.
It might be, but basically, altars in Cryptmaster are save points. So when you go to one of these altars, they are altars to this like good god, and you're a party of like undead zombies trying to make their way out of underground, essentially. So to save your game, you have to go to one of these altars, and you have to in some way desecrate it to have it as a save point. So you have to ruin the altar in some way. So when the first time you go to an altar, like the Cryptmaster, who's your sort of like narrator for want of a better term, he sort of says like, "Oh, like ruin this altar for me," and you can type in whatever you want. So first thing you might type might be like punch, and you break the altar by punching it, or like kick, knock it over, smash, all these different words. The one that both me and Adam are thinking about is in fact piss, and because
it would have been the first word I'd have typed. Desecrate is piss.
It's the first that Adam typed, I believe. But basically, yeah. The Cryptmaster has so many different fun narrations for like different situations where you'll type a word and he'll say something and you'll be like, "How the fuck did you get this voice actor to narrate this thing that one person might have typed in one situation?" Yeah. That's fucking ridiculous. But Cryptmaster knows that you were going to type piss at an altar. So you're at this save point, you're typing this thing, you're thinking like, "Oh, I'm being a bit cheeky, the developers won't have realised this." And the Cryptmaster just bellows out, "Yes, give it a good soaking." And as you piss on this altar. And I just think that was the moment where that game really clicked as being like, God damn, this game is so clever. It was made by someone who's as much of a fucking idiot as I am. And I love it. Like it was a moment that really that was the sets out its stall moment of Cryptmaster for me. And there are some other great moments in that game too, but I think that's the one I would focus on. Yeah, and it's definitely one of my more favoured moments of the year in a sort of sillier way than maybe some of the serious ones. But also, I understand if it's not necessarily going to be the group's top 5. That's fine too. But I really liked it. It's great to piss on an altar.
Yeah. But Adam, are you going to fight for it?
No, I can't. I can't on this list. I just can't.
No, I know.
That's fine then. Like if the other person who's pissed on an altar, isn't gonna fight for it, then go for it.
I don't think the Indiana Jones moment makes it. I think it's very cool, but I think only.
Is this the one where it basically replicates the opening? Yeah.
Which is really cool, but
100%.
I think it's more than just a cool thing. I'm not saying it stays necessarily, but I think it's the fact that it's also the way it tutorializes the game. Like that's clever. That's a very clever thing, I think, to do. Like it's because you're not just playing through it. You don't realize that when you go back. Like I bet I haven't obviously had a chance, but if I was to go back and watch now Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, is it? Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. That Indy does all the things that you do in that, and it is like a video game tutorial. You kind of get that sense of like how influential that those films were on games and movies particularly, but games especially, things like Uncharted and stuff like that are very they're very heavily inspired by that character and that method of storytelling and that type of adventure. And I think it's more than just we replicated an opening that you all know. It's also, this is how we tutorialize things. This is how we teach you how to use the whip. This is how we teach you. Do you know what I mean? That is, it's more than just,
it's not just a cut
fan service. It's more than just it's more than just this is a cool moment. It's specifically a very good way of integrating that kind of tutorial into the game without going, here's a separate level. You know, it's a cold open, like the film has a cold open. And I think it's very clever. And it's not something the Machine Games had to do. And I think the way they did it is very well implemented. And I think it deserves on a top 5 list best moment of the year, because I think it's very
it's
very cool and very
Chris
well
White's
done.
list.
It is very cool, and I hadn't really thought about quite how cool it is, but like, yeah, I see it, and
it's
maybe
not just fan service
as well. It's not, and it teaches you really clever.
And if you're a fan of indie, it's just being able to that was a childhood thing of mine. That film, that was like, I've watched that film I don't know how many times, and to be able to play through that specific moment, and like, because I'm one of those kids that was indie, like I was Indiana Jones, like this was like I had like the outfit when I was little, and I had this that was one of those things that has always been like, and Indiana Jones is like a hero, like from my younger years, like, and so being able to and so like, and I've played the Indiana Jones, I've played like Fate of Atlantis, and I've played, what was the one on Xbox, I can't remember now, and I've played all those, and it's, you know, and you get to be indie and it's cool, and but that was like, no, we're doing that bit, and then it's like they don't take anything
really
away
like
from that
moment.
bit.
I do. I didn't know it was as strong with others.
I just think it's, I personally think that it's, and also for it to come out of the, not come out of the blue, but they could have spoiled that in a trailer. They could have showed you that and gone, this is what we're going to do, like some developers or whatever would, and they didn't. And so,
it's also the moment where that game for me was like, oh shit, this isn't just this game that's releasing in December that I'm going to have to rush to play. This is like a special game.
Like, why is this releasing in December? Why isn't this a summer blockbuster thing that you did? Like, and so, and I haven't played much further than it. I haven't had a chance, but what an opening to a game.
Okay, so
absolutely,
if we keep that's no problem, but we do need to talk about some other.
Can we ask, me and Mick specifically ask about Like a Dragon and which of those three
I think
like...
Safe House gets cut for me. Excuse me. Comfortably. I don't think it's on par with the other two. To the point where I couldn't remember it, if I'm honest with you. I had to ask Chris because he'd recently finished it.
I mean, listen, for the purposes of speed, I would fight for the other two a lot harder. So if we're just looking for quick cuts, and there's no point in arguing it, it's basically a midpoint in the story where there's a lot of shit that happens very quickly, that it's like shock value, a couple of, deaths and shit. Like, stuff happens really quickly, and you think it's one of those moments in a story where you think, as a good hero group, we've made progress, and then it just literally gets snatched back away from you, and it's like a couple of people die and stuff, and it's just a bit shocking. And you're like, fuck, okay, that's not where I thought this story direction was going. That fucking person double-crossed us, you cunt. But compared to the other two and some others on this list, I don't think it's in the same league. But it was very good. I was like, oh, shit, all right.
Absolutely. The only other one I've already mentioned, I think I cut the tree, but how serious do we want to get here? Like, should we just go for it?
I mean, we're going to have to at some point.
I don't think the finale of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is on this list.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think it's arguably the only part of the story they slightly botched, given my affection for the original.
I added
my
it
favourite
here
bit is Vincent
because
Valentine. I love Vincent Valentine.
I added it because we have to talk about it at some point, surely.
We do, yeah.
We literally avoided talking about this fucking topic for the entire Game of the Year conversations, and I don't know how we've managed to not talk about what they've changed, what happens, and what we think about it. And it just feels like to not talk about it is... Do you know what I mean? For better or worse, like, why would we not?
Well, I feel like it might come up that... It might come up more in another day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But whereas we can talk about it by all means, but we'd have to.
I also think if you're clipping it, do we have to spoil it? Do we need to go into it in depth if we're going to clip it?
I just think It's the only misstep I feel that they make in the whole story for me. Whereas it's a bit like what I talked about with the ending of Like a Dragon, where like I felt like you either had to make one choice or make another, but either way, you stick by that choice, you make it, and you stick by it, and whatever comes from the newcomers or the fans, whatever comes, and you go, that's the choice we made. And they wanted the best of both worlds, but they've done it in a way that I don't think landed for me.
They did the same with Remake, though. They didn't learn anything from...
I'm not here saying that they won't actually make good on it and right in the third game, but I don't know that. Yeah. I can only go on what I played in this. And for me, it's a very... fucking hell, Chris Hyde, I don't know how you would follow this not knowing the source material. Quite honestly, some parts of the latter stage of this game. But what I would say is, for me, who's someone who knows the source material, has watched all the side stuff, and I was so confused at the ending or that moment, because it was like, what the fuck are you are trying to have your cake and eat it here, and that is not the decision. I
have to watch YouTube videos.
Yeah, see, it's funny because you mentioned that you've watched all the side stuff, which I haven't. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy VII.
You only need to have known that Aerith moment is what I'm getting.
Final Fantasy VII is one of my favourite games of all time, the original, one of my classics. But there's a lot of moments through. There were a few moments in Remake, and there were a few moments in Rebirth where I felt the same, where I was like, where are you going? What are we doing? Why is this character in it? And how is this relevant? And it does that quite a lot through it, but no more so in both games.
No, that's totally fair. And we don't know that, because I feel like some of the shit they did in Remake, they did deliver on in Rebirth. So I've no reason to not think that they might then deliver on some of the shit they did in Rebirth when we get to, I don't know what they'll call it, re-something, I'm sure.
Reunion, I think.
Yeah, I think
mention the word reunion.
Yeah, but like, I think it's needlessly confusing, and it's almost like they know they can't give too much away because they have a whole third game, but by doing so, they made it a little bit confusing and obtuse, and I didn't appreciate it. But whereas anything else from that game, you could stick in there, and I'd go, yep. But that's the one moment for me that I felt I'm not. To be very, very clear, I'm not here being like, well, how dare they do the different things? And no, not at all. That my favourite game of all time still exists, and I can go play it. But this,
I'm still waiting for them to let me play my two favourite party members. Give me, I know that's coming.
So am I cutting it at the finale?
Yeah,
I think so.
Chris Hyde, you okay with that?
Yeah.
You sure?
It will come up in a future day.
It will have to, because I think it.
There's only one future day.
No, I don't think you know what I'm saying. It will come up in a future day.
Okay.
You see? What do you mean?
Ominous.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean either, because there's only like...
Only Adam will know, so he just needs to go, yes, Chris, I understand.
Oh,
yes,
a future
Chris,
day. Yes, I get it now. Even I understand.
Sorry, what did you say? No, I didn't hear what Mick said then. I genuinely didn't
I said I get it too. Yes, I understand what Chris is
thick
saying.
here. That's fine. I'll cut it and move on. Go on.
I would also like to ask, though, about Rebirth. The date can be quite different, can it not?
Yeah, I missed it, actually. I missed the date in it. I didn't get it. I did. No, seriously. Honestly,
what do you mean?
I didn't play. It didn't happen in my playthrough for whatever reason.
Piss everyone off. So
I didn't know that was possible.
I didn't have the date. I didn't have that moment with either character.
End up with Barrett.
Don't you end up with like Kate Sith and shit?
Yeah,
there's weird.
Yeah, I didn't end up with either of the ones you want to end up with.
Right.
Either Aerith or Tifa. I didn't have that.
It does to him, apparently.
So, can I just talk about this? Right. Someone that hadn't played it before.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a big moment in this game as well.
Big
like,
moment
everyone
for
talks
me,
about this.
right? Team Aerith, right? Just sat on my fucking stool before we start.
I can't understand how you can't be Team Tifa.
I know, right?
Mick, I don't mean to be that guy,
let's not get
but I
involved
can't
in
do
that,
this again. I can't do this because I've done this with him over text. I can't be part of this. If you want to argue, fine.
I'm always
going to
the Tris to your Yen, Mick. It's fine. We just deal with it, right? It means we can have both, right? If they ever existed.
That's fair. Yes.
No, please, Mick, anyway, I can't do this. Not now.
Yeah. So anyway, right? So the thing that pissed me off, right? Because I'm not even the big thing that happened, but specifically the date thing, right? team
best
area.
moment, remember, Chris? Best moment.
Yeah.
Not fucking best moment. I'll tell you why it's not best moment, because I spent 40 hours charming the pants off her for her to hold my hand. Fuck off, game.
And you nailed Harding, right? You nailed Harding this year. So
I nailed Harding.
You didn't crash and burn.
Fine, I've deleted it off the list. It's
Jesus. I showed Harding my Harding, right?
Can I hang on? So did I put this on the list then? Because I thought you had. Oh, okay.
No,
well, I'm sorry.
You put that on, and I'm fuming because apparently, if you go with like Tifa, you get a full on smooch. But apparently no. If you go for the one you should go for, you just apparently fucking loves Cloud. Oh well, let's just a shitty fucking handshake. Or
all I can tell you is that there are reasons that
I don't give a shit,
is complicated. Mate. And I will also tell you that in all the years I've played that game over and over again, remakes, re-releases, I've never once gone on a date with Aerith. So I just
look, if you didn't have Barrett stroking your leg and whispering sweet nothings in your ear, mate, like I did, then
I tell you what, right? If I ever replay Rebirth, I am proper going hard on Barrett because I want a Barrett date.
I've seen that cutscene. It's great.
Yeah, like... I reckon they get more fucking action than I did with Aerith. Jesus Christ! Fucking.
Okay, I've deleted it. It's gone. We're down to 11.
Sorry, I need to calm down.
No, you do. My bad memory made me think that you had put this on the list. No, not that it was like your least favourite moment of the year. I apologise.
Look, I don't want to be that guy, Chris. Listen, mate. Listen.
Got to calm.
If you're going to go on a date with either a bartender,
moving on,
or a fucking nun, which one do you think is most likely to give you a kiss at the end of the night? And this is not me throwing shade at bartenders or nuns. This is a process of elimination.
A nun who's been fucking throwing herself at me all fucking game. Right? She is up for it, right? Until the moment when she fucking needs to pay out and she's like, oh no, Jesus. How very fucking dare you? No.
Wow. It's starting to get a bit problematic in here.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I was Team Jessie and they dropped a fucking building on her or whatever.
Jessie was great.
Yeah, Jessie's always
I'm with Mick there.
That was a lot more fleshed out in the new game than... No, listen, this doesn't matter. Do we have 11? We need to just delete one and we can at least say we got to 10.
Delete the tree from Astrobot because you ummed and ahed on it anyway.
No, I did. They loved it. Lowell loved it and Chris loved it. So
I love it.
But we have got to cut 6.
We've got to cut some stuff, right? We haven't even mentioned Helldivers 2, which I really don't want to cut because that was specific.
Talk about that yet. There'll be moments for that.
So we've got to lose something from Dragon Age.
Okay, let me just put something out there.
Please.
Right? Because I need to know where the lay of the land is for this. Right? How many people are on Team Manfred?
Oh, well, when you put it like that,
I'm only on Team Varric on that.
Of the Dragon Age ones, I'm only on Manfred, so I'm with you on that.
But I'm not fighting for it, if you know what I mean. There's only 2 on that list that I really, really want to stay on that list. So
I'll be completely honest. I'm not sure any of them make it. If they do, for me, it has to be the ending. Varric cannot be on this list because I understand it, and we discussed this in person, Chris, didn't we? When we said, like, you notice later no one's talking to Varric, but that just makes those scenes really weird. When you watch them back, they do not. It doesn't look right. It doesn't make sense, and it also it's a blindside in a way because it's like you listen. Thicky again on the plinth here. I didn't see it coming.
No, I didn't. For me, it's
made me feel very stupid.
So I thought it, but it wasn't like the thing like I've solved this. You know when things just come into your head and you go, that could be a thing. Like it was one of those, right? So like I was like, that could be a thing, but it wasn't like Barrick's dead. It was like it was a thing. For me, Varric's really more important, a bigger moment than Manfred. This is why I was asking the question.
But I would still say of the 3, the ending is the moment that really got me.
The whole trope of someone dear to you is gone, then you just hallucinate that person is like, that's just fucking stupid, really.
But it's kind of worse than that, though. I think it's worse than that because it's also like he's...
It's not just that, though. It's whole intrinsic to the whole deception of Solus. It's not just someone's died and you can't...
No, I get that.
To be fair, it's not... like,
but it makes me think about the whole game in a weird way, because like it did occur to me early on, like, why is everyone just so like they are just now? What does Rob think? It's like, well, Varric's, he's only in fucking bed.
Yeah. See,
he's only in bed.
I had a inkling of it, and it was when we spoke, and you mentioned a twist with Varric before I'd got to that point, and I went, oh, of course, and it just went like that, and it was like, obviously, that's...
Yeah, once they say it, I agree. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense, but they're kind of, I don't know, it just seems like a bloody long-winded way of doing it. I don't know.
I don't understand.
I just liked it as a twist. I thought.
This is the thing. We're talking about it as a moment, and then you're kind of talking about other bits that are different to it. Like for me,
fair enough.
I didn't know it was coming. Varric is a pretty integral character to the backstories of the Dragon Age series. Like he's literally the narrator for two or three of them. Mick, for Dragon Age 2, I want to say as well.
He's in 2, and then he's in Inquisition.
He's in Inquisition as a playable character, and then obviously a support in this. To be
completely honest with you, Dragon Age generally, the lore gives me a bit of a headache, because, like you say, he is a super important character, and he's narrating this game. How's he narrating this game?
You again gamey things. But
kind of the more I think about it, the more it like gets in my head. I'm like, So I don't know, mate. The only reason I offer it up is because I just think Manfred and the ending are like more. I guess I lean towards the emotional moments where rather.
For me, Varric is incredibly. Manfred as a thing is emotional, right? It is, but like, I mean, I got a vibe from the previous days that, apart from Lyle, no one really cared about that moment, which is fine.
Again, if I was to pick one, it would be the ending, because the ending made me cry.
The ending made me cry, and the Varric thing, I think it was just the way it was interwoven in the story was clever and shocking in a bad way, and it's Varric who, I think if like I said, like we said before, like if Harding had died, I'd have had a very fucking emotional reaction to that, because it's a legacy character that I care more about. And when you build, whether it's Dragon Age or whether it's Mass Effect or whatever, when you build relationships with characters over multiple games, if something then happens to them, it does matter.
That's the Varric thing. That's why it worked.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a character died. This is why no one gives a shit about Avrin.
But then that's also why it didn't work for someone like me who hasn't got much experience with Dragon Age.
And that's fair.
This is the double edge of the sword, isn't it?
Always fair, isn't it? Like we have to say, this is our joint.
Like I'm with you.
I don't feel particularly strongly about any of the Dragon Age moments needing to be in it.
I think the ending is quite important. I'd be, if we're going to cut them, fine, but I would be hesitant to cut the ending of Dragon Age of Elgard over Indiana Jones at this point, for example, purely because.
Would you cut Varric and Manfred for now and leave the ending where it is?
I mean, I should. Yeah, I would, but it's not down to me, is it? It's down to all of us. I mean, I can tell you that Chris White's got a Dragon Age moment on his list.
Which one is it?
But it's not one of them three.
No, because we already cut it. It was the one I didn't realise at the time. I haven't had the window open. It's the death of the. He lost Harding.
Sorry, Chris.
But he didn't care about Harding, so obviously, well, you sent it to her death. So I mean,
I would have probably, to be fair.
What?
I would have. I had no big affection for Harding. I like the character, but I don't know. I chose Davrin anyway because I thought he was the best guy to lead the other team, and then he died, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Listen, for me, like, I'm not comfortable cutting the ending of Belgard over some Astrobot levels or Indiana Jones.
Yeah, you've got multiple choices for several games on here that I think we really need to whittle some of them down. Like, I know we did it before with like It Takes Two, where that had like 4 of the top 5 moments or something, I think, in its year, didn't it? We had like several, but I just feel like
everyone.
We've got to start. We've got 11 left, and we've got to trim it down.
6 have got to go.
I think.
I really don't want to lose Indiana Jones. I don't want to lose number 3 and number 4 yet. If we have to, I don't want to lose either of them.
They're both on my list too, to be fair. So,
I got no great affection for Like a Dragon because I've not played it, so I haven't seen those moments. Metaphor sounds funny, but I'm not sure it
might
stands
be time
as a
for
death
Metaphor.
moment.
This is what I was getting at the start, but like
it's a gag and it's funny, but is it?
So my issue with cutting that based on that what you're about to say there is that then I don't think Helldivers 2 Hellbomb can stay on this list because that is not a part of a game. That is not a moment everyone experiences. It is our moment that we had as a gang, and that's similar to Get to the Anus.
It was a big moment.
Get to the Anus is a gag that everybody will see. The Helldivers moment was something that we manifested in the game where it gives you a sandbox option to do something like that.
But which doesn't make it any more or less. I mean, you can't just Get to the Anus because it's only it's only there because it's funny.
No, that's what no one's saying.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
You're the one that linked
I said Get to the
Anus
is a gag. It's not a moment that was like the Hellbomb thing was something we experienced together. That as a moment, that's exactly the definition of the best moment
that we all experienced, not together, but I don't. That's what I'm saying. You're saying it's a gag, so it's cuttable, and the reason I'm comparing the two is saying that Hellbomb's just a bomb going off. It's a gag, isn't it? It made us laugh.
I think what's clever about
I think it's completely different. I think that a moment is a moment.
I don't think Get to the Anus gets cut. I can't believe I'm talking seriously and passionately about Get to the Anus.
It's quite funny.
I'm not necessarily saying it, but we've got to cut some stuff, and I think the Get to the Anus thing sounds funny, but also. Really? You would cut Hellbomb over Get to the Anus is bonkers to me. The Hellbomb moment was very, very.
You're the one that linked it, which started this conversation.
No, I wouldn't bring us back I'm saying compare the two because Mick's saying he suggested a way it's just a gag, and
it might be that both of them are in the top 5. So let's just chill the beat. Okay. I reckon. Right. How would people feel? And this may be my version of Adam trying to cut 3 down the other day and it getting shot in the arse, right? But how would people feel if I just use the numbers for now and then we can talk about them? If we cut 6, 7, 9, and 10.
I think it's spicy, and I really love. I mean, 6 and 7 are both on my top 5.
Not 6 for me,
but. Is 7 for you though? Because weren't you trying to cut 7?
I said not 6. I'm fine with cutting the Astrobot the tree. I think that's a good game, but it's like it's all right. It's similar to the Casino one for me in that it's just a fantastic level with charm. Like, it epitomizes that game in a lot of ways.
I think 7 is lower than 6 for me as well. Okay, so. I agree.
You could probably cut 9 then as well, right? Because we all agreed that
9 and 10.
That
and 10 as well.
Yeah. But Manfred, I wasn't sure about.
What did you say, Chris? Sorry, 6, 7.
I said 6, 7, 9, and 10.
Oh, you cut 4. Okay, yeah.
I think 7 and 9 are safe cuts.
I'd say 10 as well because I'm one of the higher.
I don't think there's enough love for 10 at the moment.
I really like.
Clear, we're talking about Manfred here.
Manfred, Varric, the tree, and Cheese Mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think let's just make us feel better. Let's cut the tree and Varric now. Right. At least then we're in single digits. No. Christ,
as a quick thing, the tree was a wonderful musical level.
It really was. Like, just say, I absolutely really like that music. I like musical levels anyway, right? But I think it was just done in such a nice sort of jazzy way.
Yeah,
like, it was a really kind of like earworm rhythmical way of doing it. I really enjoyed playing that level from start to finish. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. I personally enjoyed it more than Cheese and Mouse, which is why I suggested 6 and 7. But I understand the Cheese and Mouse love.
They're very close to me.
Yeah.
To be fair, like I could go either way, but yeah. And to be fair, it's a whole stage as well. Whereas I think, especially for the tree one, like that first moment when it starts happening, it's great. But then if you're saying it's a whole level, it's a little bit harder to say as a moment. So I'm happy to get rid of that. Yeah. And then, are we getting rid of Manfred, do we think? Because
given how tough this is going to get, I don't think Manfred makes
I don't think so either.
5. But God bless the geezer.
I agree.
100%. He just starts speaking and then he fucking sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
What a fucking legend.
What a hero.
Fucking legend.
Legend of the year.
Yeah. If it's not going to be me, it should be Manfred.
Down to 8. Recap. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth ending, which I've talked about earlier. Infinite Wealth Snow. Indiana Jones opening section. Helldivers 2 Hellbomb. Astrobot End of World 2 and Cheese Mouse. Refantasio Get to the Anus. Dragon Age The Veil Guards ending.
We haven't talked about the Snow Like a Dragon because I haven't played that. So what's that?
So basically, as Kiryu is getting worse, the party splits off, and he goes off and does his own thing a bit, and he goes off in search of some old buddies. And when I say that, I essentially mean some of the most well-known.
So previous characters from previous games. Yeah.
Like, so obviously, like next year you've got Like a Dragon. Oh God, what's it called?
It's the pirate one, isn't it?
Pirate
What's it
one,
called? I've got completely drawn a blank.
Can't remember.
Pirates of the
Hawaii, isn't it?
Pirates. So it's saying anyway. It stars Majima, and then so you go off into the sort of snowy wilderness essentially.
Oh, I thought you meant something completely different.
No. That's the bit I'm talking about, and you meet up with your old buddies. And
I need to talk about another snow moment.
And then you have a fucking great big boss fight against them all.
That is kick-ass, I agree.
Yeah,
it's not my thing.
And like, that was one of those moments that are just like, it's so cool. And it also, again, epitomises the sort of madness of Yakuza as a series, where it's like this really serious emotional thing, and he's gone there to be like, I need your help, guys. And then he's basically walked away, and they're like, well, they aren't like, they actually turn around to him and go like, you think you can just fucking, talk to us like that and walk away, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, he's dying. He's dying of cancer. But he doesn't back down, and you have a boss fight, and it's just, I love it.
It's arguably one of the hardest fights in the game, but it should be.
I would say so. Yeah.
It should be, because literally these three fucking powerhouses.
It is the 3 Yakuza legends.
Yeah. I nearly added that to the list and would have called it something completely different. Can I talk about my snow moment? Because I thought it was going to be completely different.
A bizarre loophole. This has never happened before.
This, as if there's Snow 1 and Snow 2. This is not what we need to be doing right now. So, what I thought Snow...
Lyle comes back and there's 12 on the list.
Yeah. What I thought Snow was... So, in Like a Dragon... God, what's the first one called? Is it just Like a Dragon?
Just Yakuza Like a Dragon, isn't it?
Yeah, Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah. Maybe you think then. Don't do that.
So, in that game, I think it's in that. It must be. It is in that game. Nappies. That's that game, isn't it? Nappy Men. Right. So the Nappy Men, which I think may have got close to a best moment in that year when that came out.
I think it did. Yeah. Actually.
They're back in Hawaii, right? And yeah, this is what I thought you meant, right? So. The guy and his Nappy Men are back, right? And basically the upshot of it is there's a man and his wife, and his wife's not very well. And this man's looking after him, and he's running himself ragged trying to care for her, and he's really struggling, and she's not got very long left. And this... forgive me if I'm missing beats of the story on this one, but one of the woman's like, I don't know if it's dying wish or what thing she's always wanted to do is she wants to see it snow, right?
That's right.
And what ends up happening is, for want of a better phrase, these men in nappies end up helping, right, to solve this situation. I think there's a couple of story beats before that to get them on side, but they end up helping. They end up going on the roof of the building that this woman's in, and I forget what they're kind of spraying down, but like boxes of like something that's not artificial snow, but it looks like artificial snow. So they make it look like it's snowing from the down past this woman's window during her final few moments while she's lying in the bed. So this guy has this really kind of set up this like last moment with his wife. She gets her final wish thinking it's snowing outside, and it's really emotionally dramatic, and not only is it a heartwarming moment that this husband and wife, this husband gives his wife like last dying wish, but there's also this really interesting, for me it was like this really kind of summed up the studio being able to kind of mold the kind of heartwarming and the batshit crazy, because this is literally the batshit crazy moment from the previous game where there's these full-grown men in nappies drinking milk and all this sort of stuff, and they're the ones that they choose to be the heroes of this sub-story, providing this kind of woman, providing her with this kind of like dying wish of snow. And it goes from these crazy people to being such a warming, heartfelt moment. I just thought it was so magical. And when I saw snow on the list, I was like, yeah, Adam saw it too and thought it was amazing. And he didn't think it was. It was a different snow moment that he was.
There were two
funny.
snow moments.
Yeah.
Now,
Completely different reasons, but I did think that was really touching.
Christ, which one makes the list then?
No, I think they both go because they're not. I think that comes off the list, and we're down to 7. It's a cool moment.
Not even a why.
Yeah, because I think there are moments on it that people feel stronger about, including the ending itself.
No reaction to what I said.
No, we all thought it was a bit shit.
Oh, I reacted. I did.
No,
I said which one.
But
I get what Adam's saying as well. It's you know, you. I think Adam's already spoken about the ending and how like powerful.
I think also there's so many of those side quests in like Infinite Wealth that are so magical in that respect that like it's probably a third snow we could have come up with. There's so much content in that game, but yeah, we got to cut something and.
So what are we down to if we cut that?
Are we cutting that, Chris? The moment that neither of you or I realised was a different moment altogether.
It's only me that's fighting for it, so I think it's one of those things that we're going to get down to now with, I think, multiple people having to champion. And I think that's where we're at. And we're saying that only I have played it or remembered it, so I don't think it can. And
Well, I
think
remember it now. I just
no, but
I can't
think.
stop thinking about.
But your first reaction was, "Well, that's
snow.
a fucking cut." So
No, I was talking about mine.
I don't mean that in a bad. I don't mean that in a bad way. What I mean is, it's only going to be me championing it. So I think.
No, I was talking about my
by
snow
that
bit
logic,
being
it
cut.
has to be cut because I think
Two different snow bits, Lyle.
Yeah, no, I was
got a
talking about
snow.
my snow.
Well, they
section
both
being
need
cut.
cutting.
Yeah. Lyle says cut them.
we didn't add.
Lyle
So
says drop the gimmick.
because I honestly think that's where we're going to have to end up with this now because. Like it's going to have to be people that are the multiple people fighting for moments for them to stay in the top 5.
I would say so. If right, yeah, right. So I know what me and Adam were just talking about, because it came up as like hell divers and then metaphor, which I wasn't talking about hell divers at the time, but in the calmer moments, Helldivers 2 would have been a moment I would have probably said eventually we could cut it because it was a very personal thing for us. Like not necessarily.
I think that's why it stays, isn't it?
This is what I said earlier, but now I'm thinking.
I'll show my hand on this. I think that's a lock.
Right, but the reason I say it is because I would have fought for it earlier, which I did, and I would have argued it. My only question was that when what Adam pointed out earlier, actually. Which he's now flipped around on me, which I wasn't expecting.
No, I was
do.
never actually saying to cut it. I don't mean to think.
It was comparison.
It was.
I think.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's a hard one to. Right. So every other moment on this list is something that people listening or people watching or whatever may have been able to say, that bit in, the get to the anus thing that made me laugh, or this ending of Infinite Wealth made me cry. Whereas the Helldivers 2 Hellbomb, that is, and I'm not saying it goes, I'm just saying we've got to trim some stuff off, right? I'm saying that Helldivers 2 moment could have been 50 or 60 different Helldivers 2 moments in terms of, in the moment it made us.
Yeah,
because it was brilliant.
Overwatch 2's first match of the moment, whatever it is on Overwatch, where you get your first play of the game, that was on a list and got cut because it wasn't a specific moment before. Yeah, because it is a moment that had to happen. Like it only happened because we did that thing in that moment. It wasn't something that the game was. It's not some of the other people can have experienced necessarily the same. Whereas,
I'll tell you what I think on this because I think it's a really interesting conversation. Right? It's whether it is a scripted, designed moment as part of a game, or whether it's an experience that can be had. Right? And my personal view on it is, I don't think you should delete something just because it's not carefully curated by a writer or a developer to say this is part of a game that you definitely can experience. I think there's merit in the experiences that we had in Helldivers 2 and, like you say, the sandbox that it creates to create those opportunities, whether that means that you end up creating a Hellbomb moment or another moment where someone picks up someone's gun and just massacres 3 of your team, Mick. It doesn't really matter. But for me, when I think of the best moments of 2024 gaming wise for me and this group, that one is up there
Yeah.
Without, it's like the first in my mind, and I don't think it's right.
I get it. I get what you're saying, but I would also say that had this been a game like that moment happened because we were all playing together, and that's why it's on the list. Had this happened just to you, or just to me, or just to Adam on a game, when you were playing with other people, you might have added it to the list, and it would have been one of those things where like we did with Space Marine, or like Kyle did with. Like Lyle did with
it's all coming out.
like Lyle did with the Still Wakes the Deep one, where we would have gone, this thing happened, it was brilliant, but it just happened in the moment because that happened. It wasn't every other game on this list, every other moment on this list is something that any other player could experience the same way and relate to. I'm only saying that I think Helldivers 2
because the ending is Veilguard is based on your choices. So.
Yeah, I do agree that I do agree. I agree with what you're saying. I guess the difference is Helldivers 2 is the only multiplayer game on this, whereas everything else is single player articulated story.
Look, to be clear, I don't want necessarily over multiple things on this list. I've got no.
Yeah, there's no.
I agree with what you're saying. My final point would be, I agree. If this was something that had just happened to me on Helldivers and it was hilarious and it really stuck with me, it would be cut. I think one of the other reasons why this stays is because it happened with a group of us and this is our list, and it resonated with all of us. We all laughed at the video.
The easy out here is that we cut Cheese Mouse Anus.
The
Cheese Mouse Anus.
That's the easy out.
Sorry.
That's the easy out. We've got 5 and we do that. That way there's a game.
Kyle wasn't even there when we did the Helldivers thing.
I wasn't technically. And again, I'm not arguing anything.
And you haven't seen the Anus, and Chris hasn't seen the Raiders. We can't.
The only thing I wanted to argue about.
You showed me a screenshot.
Of course you have.
It's very funny.
No, that isn't it.
I know it's not. I know.
Oh, sorry, Lyle. Please.
The only thing I wanted to argue about Helldivers 2 and Hellbomb is that there has been a previous year where we discounted entirely my evolution on Project Winter of being a traitor because it was a personal moment with this group. And if we're suddenly going to allow Hellbomb to be that, then retroactively,
we can't do anything retroactive.
I would like to say that in 2021, maybe if that's the right year, Project Winter also makes the best moment list. It's important.
I don't know. I just think
these lists are forever, Lyle. We can't change them.
Helldivers 2 Hellbomb moment is one of those things where I know not everyone was present for it, but it's one of those things where, like, I'm not saying it wins, fine, it doesn't, whatever, sure, but it's one of those magical gaming moments. It reminds me of stuff I had when I was a kid, just silly stuff that happens, and you remember it because it was with your mates. And if we want to,
here's why I suggested it, right? Because I have no great affection for any other thing on that list except Indiana Jones, which I really don't want to lose from the list, right?
But you love Helldivers.
No, yes, I do. But looking at the list and listening to what other people think about these games, Helldivers was the one that, to me, stood out as an odd one out, which is what I said. I never said it was a bad moment.
I've offered it
out. I said it was an odd one out.
Mick, Adam's literally offered 2 others that aren't Helldivers.
But I'm saying, do it. Fine. I would have pulled the trigger on them ages ago.
Okay, so are we cutting Cheese Mouse Anus?
Yes.
Can you just say that again?
Are we cutting the Cheese Mouse Anus?
I suggested cutting anus, and you had a go at me about Helldivers.
You just said, but only because you said we've got to cut it because it's a gag.
Right.
Cheese Mouse is basically, there's a level where you shrink down and the whole world stays the same, but everything inside that level, there's loads of miniature stuff you wouldn't have been able to find, and it's
so clever. Like when there's like when there's a little rug that has tiny little wrinkles in that you would not even think about like noticing in a standard platforming level, and if you shrink down to a tiny size and crawl under that rug and then expand, you just get rid of the rug because you're under it because you got in this little crease in a rug. It's a really, really clever level. But I also think, and I think this is why it can go alongside the anus, is that I think
I just wanted to keep anus for as long as possible, so we just keep saying it. I'm sorry.
Because we keep saying anus, yeah. But I think Cheese Mouse is a whole level. And
it is a level, yeah.
Yeah.
And
whereas the moment for me was the realization of, oh, wow,
And I agree.
It's
and
such
that
a nebulous thing, isn't it? It's like, which moment was that for you? Did you have it when you did that under the rug, or did you have it when you went into a? There's a lot. I love that video game, and I think that's one of the best moments of the year. But
remove the anus, suck the anus straight out.
We're down to 5. We're down to 5.
Dig the anus out with a spoon.
Bite the anus.
It's gone. We are now down to
out.
the ending of Like a Dragon Infinite, which we've discussed. Indiana Jones, which we've discussed. Dragon Age: The Veilguard ending, which we sort of discussed. Helldivers 2, which we discussed. And Astro Bat Underworld 2, which is, and if you've got this far without having anything spoiled for you, it is the God of War level, where you, it's just insane. It's like
for me, it's the epitome of that entire game, right?
Yeah,
in terms
100%.
of what is kind of possible and what kind of it's. When we spoke, joy was the word everyone used, right? When they used when we're traditionally talking about that game, and weirdly, it's not a word I'd use to describe Ragnarok.
No,
but like it just fucking works because what the dev team understand is what aspects of that game and their own game are really fun to play, and therefore how they can link the two, because it literally feels like you're playing an Astrobot God of War game or a God of War Astrobot game. It's literally a perfect merger. It's not an Astrobot game level, with a Ragnarok skin, right? And neither is it the reverse. It genuinely feels like an amalgamation. It's the one that's probably done the best of all of them. It's definitely the most impactful and feels the most different, I think, and entertaining to play. And I just loved it. I'll be honest, when you said, end of World 2, and at the end of the boss, I just unlocked 2 robots, I was like, what the fuck is that it, right? And then obviously you play the whole thing. And like, I just... There's so many little nuggets and references as well, which is the whole premise of the game.
The crows.
Yeah. My God, I was annoyed I didn't unlock some secret level behind that wall when I got all the crows lit up on it. Like, because that's how far I thought they'd gone down the rabbit hole. Like, it's so good, so clever, so well done. It was superb. And like, sometimes when people big stuff up, you were jizzing over it, and I was just like, I'm looking forward to it, right? But I hate when people do that because I almost go the other way and go, well, this is going to be shit because I'm expecting great things. Fucking hell. Like, I was just beaming. I didn't want it to end. I wanted another level of it. I want a game of that. Like, it was so good. Really loved it.
Here's my question to you. While you were talking there, and I agree with every word you said, I've done a bit of finagling with the best moment list. How did people feel about that? How that looks?
So
we've talked about all 5 of them.
I haven't played Indiana Jones.
No, and equally, Helldivers 2. We had he loves it, but he's the one who's saying maybe it isn't quite high as it should be. Lara wasn't present. I don't think Chris White was present.
It was me, you, Chris,
and Steve, and Kieran.
It was Kieran.
Oh, Kieran, yes, you're right. Yeah.
Kieran was the one that set the hell bomb off. I went to check he was okay and got fucking obliterated.
But
we need to talk a little bit about what the hell bomb is.
I'm going to win that. So
sorry, what's that?
I said I'd put Indiana Jones higher, but I don't think I'll win that. I would put it above Dragon Age, the Veilguard's ending.
I was saying we should just briefly explain Helldivers 2. What the hell bomb is a I forget what they're called, but the things you can call in by pressing all the D-pad combinations, and it's a ginormous bomb that explodes. And we were playing it with Kieran McPoo from our Discord, who hadn't played the game before, I don't think, and was joining us.
It was like one of his first missions.
One of his first 2 missions, and basically we'd set this hell bomb off, and he was. It was just a confusing moment, genuinely.
The game fucked up, right? Because it did not say
I don't
at any
think
point
it played the noise.
Hellbomb armed.
Yeah, I don't think it did.
So, Kieran, have you typed in the combo for the stratagem? And I was wandering over, and it's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, oh, well, it hasn't done anything, so I don't think you have.
It was an is this ticking moment.
Yeah, and it's like, then it's a nuke. It's basically a nuke goes off, and you're like, it was
got all of us.
I just don't think, given that Lara wasn't there, that Chris wasn't there, it can probably go any higher, but it definitely has to be on the list. I was stunned. I was almost stunned silent that Mick was trying to cut it, but it's like, what?
I wasn't trying to cut it.
Really sounded like
it as a cut times. Because I was trying to I figured you guys would want to savour the things at the time.
No, I get it.
I think it goes.
I think it goes 5. The Helldivers 2. I think Indiana Jones should be higher than 5. I think there's more to Indiana Jones.
I can't talk to it, guys. I'm going to have to defer that. I don't know how good this moment is.
I could go either way on that.
It's not what I would call a moment. To me, we're stretching.
Well,
it's like the first level. So I feel like it's there, but I wouldn't.
I mean, End of World 2's a level, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, I suppose.
I think it goes 4 and Hellbomb goes 5. And then I'll probably leave the rest of it as it is.
Lau, you've played Indiana Jones. How do you feel about that?
You've played games, Lau. What's your view?
I've played games before. I like everything, except I'd like to just have a little bit of a think about 2 and 1, just in case, because we've not even heard anything about the Like a Dragon ending. And
we did. Adam talked about it in Best Story quite heavily.
Yeah.
It's just the culmination of.
I think it's
years of gaming, and like they nailed it. And I'll say again, I really thought I would walk away angry, like like I did with the Final Fantasy thing a bit. Like it's like you bottled this, and yet somehow I didn't, and I should, because I've more affection for Final Fantasy than I do for Like a Dragon. Like it's like Mick said, my favorite game of all time. But like I don't know, they just absolutely stuck the landing in a way I didn't think was possible. I didn't think they could do both. They did what they wanted their cake and ate it, and achieved that. And I think
the list's right then. I think we've got it.
I do too, but
I think that's right. And is Chris White represented?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Chris White's list.
So
he must be at least 3 times on that list.
Surely.
Sort of, yeah. So Indiana Jones is number 5 for the Raiders intro. Number 4 is Veilguard's death. Number 3 is Like a Dragon snow moment, but I don't know which one he's referring to.
I reckon it's mine.
Maybe a third one.
I don't even know what his snow moment is. That'd be hilarious. It's a third snow moment.
I'll ask him. Number 2 was Astro Bot End of World 2, and number 1 was Like a Dragon ending.
Oh, he's done great.
Oh, well,
so
then I think
his number 5 has got to 4, and number 2 and 1 are 2 and 1 if we lock this in.
That's great then. That's a proper
lock
team.
It in?
Yeah, I'm
in 5th place. In 5th place, Helldivers 2's Hellbomb. In 4th place, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle's opening section. In 3rd place, Dragon Age Veilguard's ending. 2nd place, Astrobot, the End of World 2 level. And then the best moment of the year is Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth's ending. And that is the end of day 4. I've almost run out of breath. Day 5 comes tomorrow. That is the finale, unless you're a Patreon. But tomorrow is most anticipated top 5, and then Game of the Year top 10. God only knows at this point.
5 minutes.
yeah. I'm looking at Chris White's list. Yeah, good luck, son.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, good luck, son.
Worse than Lyle's.
Yeah. No, we'll never know. Well, if you come back tomorrow and you listen tomorrow. Thank you to Chris, thank you to Lyle, thank you to Mick, and thank you to Chris White, who was not able to join us for these very long podcasts. But thank you for sending your list so you can be represented. Thank you for listening, and we will see you tomorrow for the finale, unless you're Patreon. And there might just be more. Ooh. Bye.